welcome to the regular meeting of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll also be sitting at all special taxing districts, and this is the January 23rd, 2019 meeting. Board members will attend either in person or by telephone. We do have an excused absence. Supervisor McLeod is out of town and unavailable. I don't think he made any arrangements to call, did he? All right, then we'll go on and go to the next item in the agenda, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everybody please stand up and join us? Supervisor Vice President, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Will you all please join me in the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and decision at a future date. In other words, if it's not in the agenda, we really can't get into discussing it at all, actually. So if there's anyone in the public that wants to address the board, an item that is not in the agenda, because I do have a lot of speaker cards that are focused on one item in the agenda. When that item comes up, I'll start asking people to come forward, okay? The only one that really doesn't have anything in here that may want to address the board at this particular time is Mr. Katz. He wants to talk to us about legislative change. There he is. Come forward, please, and give us your name and checking account number, social security. No, none of that stuff. Just your name.
My name's William. Good morning. Good morning. My name's William Katz. I have a P.O. box at the UPS store on 32nd Street. It's P.O. Box 643 85634. I'm also a City of Yuma resident. I just wanted to reapproach and give you an update on the efforts that I've been making, as well as the county, as it relates to improving an understanding, awareness, and hopefully legislative change as it relates to the animal cruelty statute. First, I wanted to say thank you. I think that one of the things that folks aren't aware of is how special the county's format is for Call of the Public. It's a really big deal for your citizens that you enable Call of the Public to occur at the beginning of the calendar rather than at the end. It's unique, as I understand it, to some municipal governments, and it's something that you should be commended for. It's a really big deal, and thank you. Also, I wanted to thank the board for making Mr. Melcher, I believe I pronounced his name correctly, available to take some of my questions and feedback. Since I last appeared before you and asked that this county board and that the resources that we have take action in improving and strengthening the animal cruelty statutes, I've had a few different interactions with Mr. Melcher. He's requested additional information. I intend to provide it. And also he seems very receptive to hearing me out as well as the cause out and helping at a minimum to raise awareness. I also have had an interaction with Mr. Smith, the county attorney, who pointed me in a couple different directions for resources, both at the legislature, databases, and gave me some helpful ideas. I think really what I'm trying to emphasize is that Yuma County, again, continues to be very responsive to its constituents' needs, interests, and advocacy, and really, I'm appreciative for that. So I just wanted to take the time to say thank you. I think we can really accomplish a lot together. The resources that we have the president of the Arizona County Association, Supervisor McLeod. We have a resource in Mr. Melcher. We have resources in former state legislators that sit on our county board of supervisors. We have a former retired YCSO lieutenant who served a number of years our community with pride and distinction. And I think that if we combine our resources as we're doing, we can accomplish this change. Thank you again.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
A former mayor of a small city, you know.
And
Number 4 city.
And I do want to point out that I am learning a lot about county government, and if I've neglected anyone, I do apologize. It is important for me to understand the process and learn. I don't know if you're aware of this, but I at one time was a county employee. I worked for a number of years for Mr. Smith as a prosecutor for 7.5 years, and I also served the county as a legal defender. I'm someone who believes that the county
It's okay, continue.
Thank you. I'm someone who believes in public service. I believe that the public service that y'all provide and your employees provide is very valuable, and I certainly thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have you come back at the end of the meeting, just so you continue with that. Thank you very much, Mr. Katz. And is there anyone else in the public that would like to address the board on any issue that isn't in the agenda? If not, I will continue with the next item in the agenda, which is presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations. They may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. We won't take any legal action. Any board members that have any appointments to make?
No.
Not? Then we'll move on to the presentations. And the first one is a presentation of the Yuma County Quarterly Safety Excellence Award by the county administrator, Ms. Susan Torp. Susan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. The Yuma County Safety Excellence Award recognizes county employees who consistently promote safety in the workplace. Any employee can nominate another employee for a quarterly or annual award. Safety excellence nominations are screened for eligibility, and a committee of county employees selects the award recipient from the eligible nominations. Nominees of the quarterly awards are recognized in the U-Count newsletter, receive a certificate of achievement, a safety challenge coin, and a commemorative safety mug. All nominees are automatically eligible to be selected for the annual Safety Excellence Award in conjunction with our Employee Appreciation Ceremony. The winner of today's Excellence Award receives a $100 cash award, and the annual award winner receives a $250 cash award. I'm pleased to recognize 3 nominees for the Safety Excellence Award for the second quarter of this fiscal year. They happen to all be from Public Works: Magdiel Valenzuela, Richard Rodriguez, and Travis Calvert. First, I'd like to ask Magdiel Valenzuela to join me at the podium to be recognized.
All right.
Good morning, everybody.
You're not getting off that easy.
Yeah, she's gonna make you come up.
Here is your certificate and your safety challenge coin. Stand here while I talk about it.
Hey, stay there. Espérate.
Talk about him now.
He doesn't want to stay.
I don't want you to
Magdiel
talk
is an
about it.
equipment operator at the waste transfer site for Public Works. He's worked in his current position about 1.5 years and has worked for Yuma County for 12 years. On August 8th, Mag and his coworker, Richard Rodriguez, observed that another employee was not acting like himself on that very hot day. As part of the safety training that Mag has attended, heat exhaustion and dehydration training are essential in their field. Mag walked the incoherent employee over to the Public Works yard. The employee was later transferred to the hospital by ambulance. The employee was diagnosed with heat stress, and Mag and his coworkers saved the life of their fellow employee because of their heat exhaustion training, knowing the signs of heat exhaustion. Another example of Mag's safety consciousness is that he ensures safety at the county's waste transfer site. Mag is always proactive and assists other coworkers, especially new employees, in handling equipment, bins, and customers. He stresses to coworkers the importance of drinking plenty of water and reviewing the training on heat exhaustion. Thank you, Magdiel.
All right.
Next, I would like to ask Richard Rodriguez to join me at the podium to be recognized.
And stay at the podium, Richard. Stay at the podium.
Here's your certificate, and here's your. All right. Richard is an equipment operator at the waste transfer site for Public Works. He has served in this current position for 9 months and has been with Yuma County for 30 years. Richard and his coworker, Magdiel Valenzuela, both took swift action to assist the employee in need on August 8, 2018. Richard observed that his fellow employee was not acting right. He was slurring his words and appeared lost. Richard also had recently participated in heat exhaustion training. Richard and his coworker assisted the fellow employee. Richard informed Jason Phipps, Deputy Public Works Director, who called 911. This swift and appropriate action saved his coworker's life. As another example of Richard's safety-conscious actions, he is known for helping calm angry customers at the waste transfer site and assisting new employees in how to handle equipment and the public. He guides vehicles in backing up to the dumpster so they don't cause any accidents with other vehicles or hit the dump area. Thank you, Richard.
Hey, Richard, hold on. we may need your assistance at a couple of meetings here, so if you're able to calm people down, you need to stay.
Good luck with that. You might want to ask him first. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next, I would like to ask Travis Calvert to join me at the podium to be recognized. Travis is an equipment technician 2 in fleet maintenance for Public Works. He has been in this position for about 3 months and has been with Yuma County for 2 years. On October 10th, 2018, Travis responded to a call for assistance from 2 employees from the health department who were stranded when their assigned vehicle broke down on a rural county road. The employees saw no clear markers or signage posted, and they could not give Travis clear directions to get to where they were. Travis could hear the urgency in the employee's voice. He set out to try to locate the employees and took water for them since it was a hot day. He continued talking with them on the phone line, reassuring them the help was on the way. Once he was able to determine nearby landmarks and other details, he was able to arrive on scene, make sure they were okay, provide them with water, and start the car. Travis then followed the employees back to Public Works and exchanged their car for a new one. Travis went above and beyond to locate these employees, calm them down, ensure they were okay, and replace their vehicle. As part of his work at Fleet Maintenance, Travis makes sure all vehicles have a fire extinguisher, emergency roadside kit, and insurance packet to ensure employees are ready in case something happens on the road. Travis also followed up on this incident by giving a presentation to the health department to teach employees how to properly inspect their vehicles and complete a pre-trip inspection checklist. Thank you, Travis.
So he's the one we call when we want a new vehicle, right? If we want a new vehicle, we call Travis. He'll provide us with a new one.
It's such a hard decision because they're all so really, so
Don't say it.
so qualified and so deserving of the award, but we can only give the award to one person. So it's always exciting to share these awards and nominations with you. And I'd like to commend all the nominees for their dedication and service to safety. And I also want to encourage all employees to nominate another deserving fellow employee for this award for the third quarter coming up. Now, I'm pleased to announce that our Safety Excellence Award recipient for the second quarter is
Well, this is like the Oscars.
Mr. Travis Calvert.
Oh, Travis.
please join me at the podium. So we have a check for Travis for the winning nomination in the amount of $100. Also, we would like to have all 3 of our nominees come and take a photo with the board.
Yeah, guys, you kind of offset the voting there because you were nominated for the same thing. That's what happens. I can see how you can vote for the guy that gives you the new car. Congratulations, Richard.
Good to see you.
Hey, and Emmanuel.
You guys in the middle.
I want the guy with the check on this side.
I do too.
Be careful with Richard, man. Hold on to that envelope.
Yeah.
You can rest assured. Supervisor McLeod isn't here, so your check is safe. Ready? Go. Okay, guys. Thank you.
Yep.
Well, congratulations and thank you, guys. Really great work. Next on the presentation and proclamation and appointments section is a presentation of the Yuma County line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel.
Is the federal government shutdown impacting any of Yuma County services? We'll tell you. Construction plans have begun, and more county departments will be making the move into our newest building. And it's that time again where we recognize this quarter's Safety Award winner. These stories and more, this is your County Line. many of you are aware, the federal government has been in a shutdown status since December 22nd. Your county government is definitely aware, and some of you have contacted us to see if there are any impacts to county services. The good news is no, but that doesn't mean the shutdown couldn't impact the services we provide. Your county government receives funds from the federal government to provide some services, and while those programs have not had any problems yet, March is where the proverbial line in the sand is drawn. The Yuma County Public Health District offers things like nutrition programs, family planning, immunization programs, as well as the WIC program, all of which could feel the impact of the shutdown in March.
We have several employees that work in the WIC program throughout clinics throughout the county. We help serve around 8,000 families that would be impacted. Programs that also receive federal funding include immunizations. We're the largest provider of immunizations. We give thousands of immunizations every year, particularly for back-to-school clinics. We have TB and other communicable disease controls that would be impacted.
The Yuma County Housing Office is also preparing for the same scenario. The Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program, Low Rent Public Housing, and Family Self-Sufficiency Program are all in danger of not being able to operate if the federal government doesn't get back before March. So while all of these programs are currently stable, March could be a different story if the federal government is not back to work. Be sure to stay with us. We'll continue to update you if the shutdown continues. Recently, we talked about how much Yuma County has grown over the last few years, and that growth means some of our departments have grown as well. Our newest building, located in historic downtown Yuma, has been steadily coming to life. You might remember our assessor, election, recorder, and treasurer's offices have all been relocated there. More construction will begin there in the coming months as your county supervisor's auditorium and offices, along with the communications offices, will be relocated there sometime in 2020.
We actually are just wrapping up the conceptual design phase with our architect. We hope to present that to the design review team in mid-February. And if everything looks good and we move forward from there, we'll go right into detailed design. We expect to bring on our contractor in late spring, early summer. And if we hold to the schedule, we'll start construction in late July, early August. And construction is scheduled to last through the end of the year.
When the construction begins later this year, all offices at 197 South Main Street will continue to be open. Stay tuned. We'll bring you updates on this project as it progresses. On this edition of our Department Spotlight series, we take a closer look at our Animal Control Division, who's responsible for protecting the people and animals of Yuma County.
Our primary mission is rabies control, and that entails if you are bitten by an animal, a dog or cat or a bat, then you report it to us and we'll do a bite investigation. If you get bit by an animal, they'll call it in, they'll report it to the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff's Department's who dispatches us out, and we'll do an investigation at that point to determine if it was a bite. And if it is a bite, then we do a quarantine procedures on that. Now, if your animal gets hold of a bat, please call us and let us know about that also, because then at that point we can do a quarantine on your animal also. If you're walking your dog on a canal bank without a leash on, or a dog running at large because you got out of the yard or something like that, that's what we enforce. And then we'll pick up the dog, educate the owner if we can give the dog back to the owner, which is why we tell people the license, that way it's got a tag on it and we get it back to the owner. Or if it's microchipped, we can scan it and we're able to find out where that dog lives at and turn it back to the owner. If not, then we take it to the Humane Society of Yuma, and at that point owners can go look for their animals there. The other thing is barking complaints. If an animal is barking uncontrollably for an unreasonable amount of time, we'll educate the owner again about the barking ordinance and we'll start procedures from there. We work 7 days a week. We come on at 8 o'clock in the morning. We work to 6:30 at night, except for holidays. Holidays it's 8 to 5, but we're on 7 days a week, which is something we've added over the last year and a half, 2 years, to be able to cover that 5,500 square miles and to give the public a better service.
You can learn more about the Yuma County Animal Control Department by visiting yumacountyaz.gov. You'll find them under the Government tab.
I'm Elia Juarez, and this is your Library Update. You've probably heard of our very famous summer reading program for all ages, but did you know we have a winter reading program just for adults? This winter, we want to encourage all the adults in Yuma County to read. All you've got to do to participate in the program is fill out your review of whatever book you read this winter. Hand it back in at your library, and you could win a gift certificate. For more information on the winter reading program or any of our other programs, check out our website at yumalibrary.org, and don't forget to follow us on social media.
It's time once again to recognize county employees who have helped set the standard for safety in your county government. All employees are eligible to be nominated for the quarterly Safety Excellence Award. This quarter, we recognize Travis Calvert, who works as an equipment technician for our Public Works Department. 2 county employees became stranded in a remote part of the county where there is little signage, which hindered giving an exact location when they called in for help. Mr. Calvert sensed the distress in their voices, so he set out to locate the individuals. Being that it was a hot day in the desert, he also was sure to bring water. His first attempt to locate was unsuccessful, but he was fortunately able to reach them by cell phone. Mr. Calvert found the employees, provided water, got their car started, and then followed them back to the Public Works facility to ensure their safety. Mr. Calvert practices safety every day at Public Works. His regular duties have him inspecting all vehicles leaving the Public Works compound. But on October 10th, he went above and beyond, ensuring the safety of our personnel, our most valuable resource. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook. We'll see you next time.
All right. That takes care of item number 2, which is the presentation of the Yuma County Line. And item number 3, we will have recognition of the Yuma County graduates of the National Association of Counties High Performance Leadership Academy. Susan?
Good morning, Chairman Reyes and members of the board. The National Association of Counties, or NACO, is the association that represents and serves county governments across the country. As part of its service to counties and their elected and professional staff, NACO created the High Performance Leadership Academy. The High Performance Leadership Academy is an online 12-week program that empowers frontline county government professionals with the most fundamental leadership skills to deliver results for counties and communities. The first High Performance Leadership Academy was launched in 2018. 4 employees of Yuma County were among a select group of participants from across the country chosen to participate in this inaugural class, which began in the fall. I'm pleased to recognize our 4 NACO Academy graduates, and I'd like them to come forward. Suzanne Cooper, Nutrition Program Coordinator; Lisa Mendez, Deputy Library Director; Kathy Ward, Nursing Supervisor; and Karina Zavala, Public Health Nurse. Oh. So I wanted to just take this opportunity to publicly recognize and congratulate these 4 women who participated and graduated from the High Performance Leadership Academy. They serve as role models and are recognized as current and future leaders for the county. We're hopeful that employees from other county departments will take advantage of this professional development opportunity. And I'd like to invite our graduates to make any comments if they would like to, and then I'd like to get a group photo with the board.
Certainly. You know, there you go. You got to shift a little so you can be in the picture. You can't be in the back.
We appreciate Susan giving us this opportunity. Oh, Lisa Mendez, Deputy Library Director. Anyways, we appreciate Susan giving us this opportunity. It was a really great class. Getting to know other people within the county and getting all the information that we did was really great.
Yeah, and I'm Kathy Ward. I'm the nursing supervisor at the health department, and I love this training. It was wonderful, and I just wanted to thank Diana Gomez, Maria Nunez for giving us the opportunity to be a part of this. It was well worth it. So.
Hi, and I'm Suzanne Cooper. I'm the Nutrition Program Coordinator at the Health Department. And I also want to thank Diana Gomez for the opportunity. But I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. As I mentioned before, I think it should be mandatory for everybody to go through that. But I got a lot out of it, not only professionally, but personally, because it really helps you to dig inside and just develop those qualities that will make you a better leader and connect with the people that you serve. So I really appreciate this training.
Karina Sawala, public health nurse, and I'm really grateful that I got the opportunity to do the class too.
All right, well, let's take a group picture.
There we go.
In the middle.
You guys go in the middle.
All right, there we go. All right, group picture. There was no money involved, so there's no need to be serious.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the class.
Thank you.
You can tell Supervisor Pancras is a hugger.
I know.
She hugs everyone. Okay, I think that takes care of all the presentations and the appointments and proclamations. I will then move on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar is where the items listed under this calendar will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. We have items 1 through 11. Are there any items to be pulled from the consent here? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve items as presented, items 1 through 12, through 11. Okay, it's been motioned to approve, it's been motioned and second to approve items, consent calendar items 1 through 11. During the discussion, I guess if there was some discussion, we had to pull it up.
Yeah.
So all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. I am going to recess the Yuma County Board of Supervisors and convene as the Yuma County Housing Governance Board. We do have an item, it's a consent calendar item, but it's been asked to be pulled out for further review by the legal department. So I'm going to, what do you want us to do, no action or just table the item?
I think just take no action. If we clarify our concerns, we'll bring it back as presented, or we'll present it in a new package.
All right, well, we'll take no action, and, I will adjourn then the Yuma County Housing Governor Board and reconvene the Yuma County Board of Supervisors to then take on the discussion and action items. And then this one, the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. The first one is development service, discussion and possible action concerning a possible amendment to the zoning ordinance to remove the ability to construct an accessory dwelling unit in the noise zone. This is the outcome of that case that we had where was it the Marine Corps?
Yeah.
Came over and said, look, I mean, it's when you allow somebody else to build, you create a more dense area, which is exactly the opposite of what they actually want. But because it is an allowed process that with the permit, people have the idea they can do that. So, well, why don't you just go ahead and explain the item instead of me trying to explain it all, and then you have to repeat all that I've said.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. Yes, this item came about based on an item at the November 5th Board of Supervisors meeting, where staff was asked to look into the possibility of possibly amending the zoning ordinance to prohibit accessory dwelling units on properties located within the noise zones. The current zoning ordinance was amended in 2012 with Commission Initiative 12-01. And what that Commission Initiative did was consolidate some existing definitions in the zoning ordinance, specifically guest house and residential guest quarters, and replace those terms with the term accessory dwelling unit. What the Commission Initiative did was provide a definition for what an accessory dwelling unit is, and also established zoning districts in which accessory dwelling units are allowed, specifically the RA district, SR district, SSB district, R1 district, and MHS zoning district. The amendment to the zoning ordinance did not prohibit
accessory dwelling units in the noise zones. Therefore, amending the current zoning ordinance to prohibit accessory dwelling units in the noise zones could pose a potential issue with Prop 207 because the current zoning ordinance allows or has a provision for the previously mentioned zoning districts to apply for an accessory dwelling unit, regardless of whether the property is in a noise zone. Removing that allowance could pose an issue with Prop 207. And what Prop 207 did is a 2006 ballot initiative officially titled Private Property Rights Protection Act, and required the government to reimburse landowners when regulations result in a decrease in the property's value, and also prevents government from exercising eminent domain on behalf of a private property.
Oh, are you done?
No.
Okay. You were passing for effect.
Correct. So included in the packet today is an image showing an area of the comprehensive plan that contains noise zones or the high noise and accident potential zone. That image also displays the existing land use assignations within the high noise and accident potential zones. State law, specifically Arizona Revised Statutes Title 28-8481J, allows single-family residential development that permits one dwelling unit per acre or less within the 65, 70, and 75 plus noise zones if the zoning was approved on or before December 31st, 2000. An example of this would be an accessory dwelling unit on a property located in the 65 decibel noise zone that is designated rural density residential and is zoned suburban site built 2-acre minimum. Although the approval of an accessory dwelling unit in said zoning district would result in 2 dwelling units on 2 acres, the use is deemed in compliance and incompatible with the comprehensive plan. The use is considered consistent and compatible with the high noise and accident potential zone of the military airport because it results in a density of 1 dwelling unit per acre. Since 1996, and I use 1996 because that's when the joint land use plan was amended that established uses, densities, and intensities allowed within different land use assignations and different areas of the comprehensive plan. Since 1996, there have been 14 accessory dwelling units or second dwelling units approved within properties located in the noise zones. 10 special use permits for accessory dwelling units have also been denied within that same time frame. 6 of the 14 special use permits that were approved within the noise zones were approved with time limits. And normally it was because it was a manufactured home as a second dwelling unit.
And because sometimes it was an application for someone that needed to have a relative that was in bad health or something similar to that. It was an individual family per case situation that we dealt with individually.
Correct. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation.
Okay, so is the point that you're making that that because it is a sort of assumed situation that that a person can actually have a second dwelling unit because we established a ruling that people can have guest houses, and it applied to this area, that when we deny that, we may be getting into a situation where that property owner can come back and say, well, you have denied me a use that is a permitted use, but requires a permit, which is something that I find a little bit difficult to reconciliate. I mean, if they need a special permit to do it, then it's a use that's permitted on an individual case basis.
Right.
So what you're telling us, we cannot blanketly remove that without risking someone coming back and saying, you can't do it because you're reducing the value of my property? Is that what
Mr.
you're saying?
Chairman, yes, that is correct. Amending the zoning ordinance to remove the provision that allows property owners to request a special use permit for an accessory dwelling unit
In that area.
may, yes,
May trigger that?
create, yes, may cause them to file a claim for reduction in property value.
So we can give them the right, but we can't take it. Is that what you're saying, basically?
In a way, yes.
No, no, it's true. We created the guest dwelling ordinance, and so the regulation, to allow people to be able to do that in certain places. I mean, we obviously weren't thinking about doing that in a noise zone. So we can't correct a mistake that we made at the time?
Mr. Chairman, the issue is that Prop 207 prevents local governments from causing a reduction in property value.
I get it, but we do that all the time. We rezone
Well-
all the time, and we deny zoning all the time. Based on that premise, almost every time we deny a zoning that's permitted, we would be running afoul of that. And we do that, I'd say in my few years that I've been here, we've done that.
Mr. Chairman, and the basis of bringing a rezoning action forward is a property owner requests that. And when staff processes a rezoning case, one of the conditions of approval is that they record an ARS 12-1134 waiver that indicates that, makes them aware that they will not file a lawsuit for reduction in property value.
Okay, so I guess I'm getting to the point where I'm going to ask you, okay, to be able to do it, to be able to exercise the authority that we're supposed to be given to deal with every individual case. I mean, I understand precedent, but I've been taught over time by this legal staff here that doesn't necessarily apply all the time. So what are you suggesting? What is legal going to allow us to do to prevent that from happening? Nothing? Is it going to be an individual case-by-case situation?
Mr. Chairman, I'll defer that to legal counsel.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, you could amend the ordinance and not allow these second dwellings in the high noise area.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody files a claim, you're going to have to pay the claim or reverse the ordinance.
Okay.
And
that, I guess that applies to almost any ordinances that's going to restrict somebody's, use of their property. And it's is it a risk we're willing to go through? I mean, what happens when a person, let me just back up a little bit. This happened because a person brought in a permit request, to allow us to do that, to allow them to do that. And we denied it. So what's the difference between removing that from the zoning ordinance and denying that petition? Because what I gathered from the presentation is that we basically being told, look, when you deny someone's use when you deny someone a permitted use, that we still require for them to file for, you may run afoul of a state statute that says that may reduce the property value, but we do that. We just did it. So how is this different? Is it because it's blanket? How is this different than what we just did? We did that 2 months ago.
Mr. Chairman, anytime you deny a rezoning request, it does not trigger a Prop 207 claim. It's only when you actually approve a rezoning request. That's why staff will require any applicant who's requesting a rezoning request to file a Prop 207 waiver, which the statute allows, saying that they will not file a claim if they are granted the rezoning.
Also, if they ask for a permit, if they ask for a permit that is allowed in that particular district, do we ask them to sign a waiver then at that particular time that if they're denied, they're not going to file a lawsuit? And that covers
that
it?
is the practice of staff. They always sign a waiver.
She's saying no. You're saying yes.
The waiver is signed if the request is
Yeah,
approved.
right.
If
Mr.
they're
Chairman,
The
denied,
waiver is
there's-
signed if the request is approved?
Mr. Chairman, there's no need to have them sign a waiver if it gets denied, because they have no claim under the statute. It's only if the rezoning is approved.
I don't get it. That's actually the opposite of what I thought we were doing here. I thought that we would be sued if we denied it.
Yeah.
What would we be sued if we approve it?
Mr. Chairman, the statute says if you take any action that reduces somebody's property value, they can file a claim.
That's right, but
So
if
they
you,
come in and ask for rezoning, and you grant the rezoning. If it's devalued the property, they could file a claim. That's why the statute also allows us to require a waiver, Prop 207 waiver, which the staff does require.
it's only got to be done, and this is a legal opinion, so.
But,
I think I see what
Mr.
you're saying,
Chair?
though.
Yeah, I think I see it too, but it's just a
Mis-
really.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
Mr. Chair,
Supervisor
but that
Martinez.
waiver is done after we approve it? Or is it done before we?
Mr.
approve it?
Chairman, those waivers, legal has advised staff to make sure those waivers are done before you approve the zoning.
In other words, when they make an application.
And to cover it, there's even a condition the staff puts in that they have to file it within so many days after in case it was missed.
You know,
I
Go
think
ahead,
what they're
Supervisor.
saying is if we do a rezoning on it, a blanket for the whole area, then we have to pay the devaluation, if any. But if we take it on a case-by-case basis, then we're not affecting the whole area, it's just that one. And it's, like I said, when it comes before us, we have that option.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if you maintain the status quo and allow people to request the special use permit and deny them, there is no basis for a claim.
Good, okay, that's good, okay.
All right.
I understand.
And how do we, then I guess in every time we go through a commission initiative, for example, you know, that was not something that was in my radar when I was reviewing those things. I mean, you know, because what we're doing then is we're giving people a right that we can't take back, you know, without risking being sued. You know, so it adds another layer of, well, I don't know what to call it because I don't want to offend anyone, but it adds another layer of stuff that we need to deal with now. I was actually thinking was the opposite. You know, if you deny the claim, then you create a situation where you're taking away, you know, property value, because I guess it's already been given by the zoning that they're in. So, you know, that's why it gets a little confusing for me.
Mr. Chairman, Maggie, in other words, if we leave the statute the way it is, then we're fine. And we approve or deny on an individual basis, and we're fine. If we try and change the whole thing and deny, then we're triggering a Prop 207.
We may trigger a Prop 207.
We may trigger a Prop 207.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Pankowski, that is correct.
All right, so this
Got
is
it.
one of the few times where, you know, not doing anything is probably better than doing something,
I
right?
know, huh?
Okay, and you brought this as a action item because you need action, or you brought it over as an informational item that may require some action? Or do you want direction to stop doing what you're doing? Is that what you want?
Mr. Chairman, it's a discussion item. The board can take action to,
Stop you.
well, no, just to end the item at this time, to
All
not
right.
proceed with
Well, that's
an
the
amendment to the
word
zoning
stop, right?
ordinance.
No,
Yes.
do not proceed. Do not proceed.
Do we need to
What
take a
it-
vote?
No, I don't think so. I think
Okay.
that no action will be fine as long as we give direction that stop what you're doing if it's going to trigger a you know, statute. That's what it boils. Fortunately, Supervisor McLeod isn't here because we would be taking a lot longer with this one.
Yes, we would.
But, you know, fine. Is it okay with the board if we just, you know, sort of say, hey, like, let's not proceed down this road? Although I feel uncomfortable about it, but, you know, I feel that every time an opinion like this comes out, it just takes away from the board's ability to make a decision. Because in reality, when it comes to us, you know, pretty soon the attorneys are going to tell us, well, but they already have. I already feel that we're boxed in some of the decisions we have to make. Now, every time we discuss something that isn't, you know, discussed by the Planning and Zoning Commission, we have to send it back. And it didn't used to be that way. It's not that way now. But that is the times we live in, complicated times. Thank you, Maggie. I think you've gotten the drift. Do not proceed. All right. Thank you, legal. The next item is for the county administration to discuss the possible action regarding the following legislative items: a report to the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills in the Arizona State Legislature with impact to Yuma County, and an update on the development of Talking Points legislative memorandum. Hold on a minute, Paul. I'm going to take on the zoning cases and get that out of the way. I think we want to get involved in sort of a discussion back and forth, and there's a lot of people here for an item in the Planning and Zoning Commission agenda. So I'm going to postpone this to a further time and going to take on the Planning and Zoning agenda. Full legal descriptions of property sites for all rezoning cases are available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors office. There is one item on the expedited rezoning and public hearing section, and these items will be opened as a group for public hearings and acted upon by one motion to adopt the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission, except for any item that is removed by a board member for separate consideration. The item will be discussed and acted upon separately following action on expedited items. Here is a case where everything seems to be online. You know, everybody says it's fine to do it, and so they bring us a case like this on an expedited process. That means that, you know, we'll take it in. Normally there's more than one, but this one is only one. And if you guys want to talk about it, we can pull it out. But once we pull it out, you know, it becomes an action item that we need to have a public hearing on, and we need to, you know, go through a much long and lengthy process of presentation.
Mr. Chairman, this will require a public hearing nonetheless.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, okay. When I say expedited, it means that we can skip the presentation and get to the public hearing. That's what it means to me, okay? Development Service Planning and Zoning, rezoning case number 18-13, Adrian Vega, agent for Timothy Samuelson, requests the rezoning of the west 167.67 feet of parcel 28,889 square feet in size from local commercial C1 to low density residential 8,000 square feet minimum R18, and the east 145 feet to low density residential 6,000 square feet minimum. Assessors parcel number 664-01061 located at 85-1 South Avenue C, Yuma, Arizona. As I explained to the board, we can move through this process relatively quick, open up public hearing, unless you want to listen to the presentation. Do you want to listen to any presentation, or should we move to the public hearing and see if there's any? Okay, we're moving this item to a public hearing. I'm opening the public hearing process. Is there anyone in the public that wants to address the board on this particular item?
No, I come to talk about construction we're going to make 851 Eleanor Avenue.
I think it's the other one.
Yeah, that's it.
Is this it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, the meeting is open to the public, ma'am. You can come forth and give us your name and.
Good morning, my name is Francisca, and
Francisca,
I'm caregiver. Francisca Raya, R-A-Y-A.
Right there, okay.
I just have 75% in English. I hope you guys understand me. I'm here because you're gonna have make a property and a half, 851. I own 830 Eleanor Avenue. It's gonna be my wall from my home, and my home right now is I'm opposed already to. I think you're gonna build apartments, right? So I'm opposed to cut the property in half. That's why I come here, because you do some apartment.
Well, so what you're saying is that you're opposed to a multi-family development in that property? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because I am wall by wall.
Okay, if I see this right, there's nothing here that says that there will be an apartment dwelling complex. It says this will change from C1, which is commercial, to R18, which is 8,000 square foot lots. And the other portion is to R16, which is 6,000 square foot lots. There is no zoning to do apartments. Okay. So, it's not going to be apartments. It's going to be regular residential lots.
Yes, divide.
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to let you know my place is very calm all the time. I live in another place, but I live over there for 5 years, and I know it's very calm over there. And I see the measurements you made too. Your measurements pass a little bit from my mailbox, a little bit. And I just want to let you know that property I own is protected by the grandfather law.
Okay.
So,
all right. I don't think it impacts your property, and I don't think this zoning allows for an apartment complex, if that's what you're concerned.
And another thing I want to be sure it's okay, you want to do wherever you want to do in there, but you're going to do it even if I said no. But in the future, I don't want to reimburse my money because you guys going to do something, for something,
Okay.
So
All right.
I don't want to be disturbed by that. And I just want to tell you and let you know about it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for
Muchas
letting me the
gracias.
opportunity
Gracias.
to tell you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
I think the lady is concerned that there would be an apartment complex built there because of the density, I suppose. But the zoning here does not indicate that. The zoning is that it is for residential lots of 8,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet, which are still residential lots that are probably, pretty much close to what they have in that area.
Mhm. All they're doing is, Mr.
Right.
Chair, all they're doing is dividing that property.
Oh, and they're changing C1, which
Yeah.
it's actually the opposite of what you normally see. You normally see people going to commercial because the property actually supposedly becomes more valuable.
Yeah.
So, but I can understand the concern of Ms. Rydell that, that if apartments are built in there, she thinks there's going to be a large number of people living in that, in that condensed
That
area.
small area.
That's right. Okay, anybody else in the public? Muchas gracias, señora. I'm going to turn it back to the board for their decision. This is an expedited item, so a motion to approve or disapprove is needed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Then motion and second to approve expedited item number 1. Any discussion on the item? No? All those in favor of the item signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Then we have a regular public hearing, which staff will make a full presentation of each of the following items, following by separate discussion, a public hearing, and action by the Board of Supervisors. Okay. So the first one is special use permit case number 1809, John Mahon, agent for Michael B. Bean, requests a special use permit section 601.03Y of the Yuma County zoning ordinance to allow a wireless communication facility on a parcel 5 gross acres in size, on rural area 5 acre minimum, on assessors parcel 724-52-004 located at 13686 South Avenue 5E, Yuma, Arizona. You moved, Mr. Rubio. You moved too fast.
Yeah.
Okay, so staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fernando Villegas, Senior Planner, presenting special use permit 18-09. As mentioned, this is a request to allow a wireless communication facility on a 5 acre parcel zone RA5. The applicant's intent is to allow the wireless communication facility 140 feet in height. Next, we have a map showing this vicinity. Parcel 5 to the north, its own rural area 5 acre minimum, RA5, and is the location of a manufactured home and other accessory buildings. Parcel 3 directly to the west, its own SR3, and is the location of a manufactured home. Parcel 2 to the west is also zone SR3, and is the location of a site-built home. Parcel to the southwest, zone RA5, is the location of a site-built home. Parcels 724-60, 003, 004, and 005 to the south are zone RA10, and are the location of site-built homes and manufactured homes. Parcel 1 to the east is zone PD in Citrus, and this parcel was rezoned to PD for the construction of La Valencia subdivision. However, subdivision was not built. The site plan, the next slide shows the site plan submitted by the applicant. The subject property is the location of a manufactured home, storage shed, and a modular building that are located in the southwest portion of the parcel. The site plan shows that the proposed wireless communication facility to be located on the east side of the property, about 144 feet from the front property line and 154 feet from the north property line. The next slide shows the elevation of the wireless communication facility. Next, we have an aerial view of the subject property and adjacent properties. And another aerial view of the subject property. This slide shows a picture of the subject property looking west from the southeast corner of the subject property. Another picture looking west from Avenue 5E. And this view looking south from Avenue 5E. The next slide shows a map of the area showing the location of other wireless communication facilities and radio towers. The radio towers are located about a mile northwest from the subject property. These towers are 274 feet high. The rest of the map shows the location of the other wireless communication facilities in the area.
Mr. Chair, Mr.
Sure.
Villegas, the one up here on the top, isn't that just a little tiny skinny tower? I mean, right behind the peanut patch, is that?
Those are the wireless communication, no, those are the radio towers.
Yeah, and aren't they just like this?
Yeah, they're skinny.
Yeah, tall and skinny, yeah.
Tall, skinny.
This one isn't this one wouldn't be tall and skinny, correct?
The proposed tower is, I don't know the width of the tower, but it's 140
The
feet
height
high.
is not the discussion. I guess what you wanted to know is whether it's going to be a
Is it going to be-
A cellular tower.
Yeah, cellular tower. Yeah, but there are cellular towers. You just saw one in San Luis, 140 feet, and it looks like a tree, a pine tree, which stands out in the desert like a sore spot, but, whatever. But, it's just a one pole. I guess that's it. There's a difference between a pole tower, which is just one single pole going up, and a what do you call those metal frame towers?
Lattice.
Pedestal.
Lattice.
Mr. Chairman, the proposed tower is a lattice tower.
That's what I was searching for, a lattice tower.
And Mr. Chair and Mr. Villegas, the other ones are 100 feet and 65 feet, correct?
Yeah, the rest of the
80 and
towers,
90.
the ones on Avenue 3E, we have two. That one is 90 feet high. The other one is 80 feet high by MCAS.
Mm-hmm.
The other one on Avenue 3E and County 14, it's 100 foot. It's a 100-foot tower,
Mm-hmm.
and we have another one. The City of Yuma jurisdiction to the northeast. It's monopalm, 70 foot high.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But the
What's
ones
that?
that are 274 feet high are those single poles,
Those are the radio towers. Yes.
radio towers. Mhm.
Right. Okay.
Okay, the staff received comments from NCAS, Game and Fish Department,
Mhm.
and we received a petition with 20 properties in opposition. 3 properties in the petition are within 300 feet. This amounts to 43% by number and 30% by area in opposition. This level of opposition thus triggers a supermajority vote by the Board of Supervisors for approval of this request. This morning, I received another letter in opposition from Jason Periconi, owner of the property directly to the east in opposition.
Where that subdivision was supposed to go.
Yes,
Mr.
this-
Chair and
Look, I'm gonna, go ahead,
Mr.
sorry.
Villegas. Mr. Chair, Mr. Villegas, the property is Citrus that was rezoned for a subdivision that we gave, just recently, we gave him an extension because he just bought the property, correct? We gave him
No,
an
it's not this
extension a
one.
couple months ago.
I don't remember that.
I don't think this is the
No,
property.
this is
yet.
not that property. I don't
Oh,
remember
okay.
that being that property.
But anyways, this map shows in red the properties within 300 feet in opposition, including the letter that we received today, this morning.
Mhm.
And in yellow, the rest of the petition, Jason property owners that are in opposition.
Mhm.
In other words, the ones in red are the ones that can be used to trigger a supermajority, and the ones in yellow are just, property owners around the area.
Yes,
Mhm.
Hey,
correct.
let me, before you, go ahead, finish up. Sorry.
Well, the Planning and Commission recommends approval of this request with the following operational conditions. The approval of the special use permit is based on the site plan submitted by the applicant. Any change from the site plan will require approval by the planning director. Operational condition number 2, the special use permit is limited to a single tower, 140 feet in height. Operational condition number 3, the proposed towers must be lighted with a white strobe light at the top of the structure for operation during daylight hours and a red beacon at the top of the structure for operation during dusk to dawn. And with an additional steady burning red light placed on the tower at 50% of the tower total height. Operational condition number 4, the applicant must comply with FCC regulations, including marking, lighting, and notification requirements. Number 5, the proposed tower must be removed with the cessation of its use. And the final condition, performance condition, is all owners or agents must provide an IRS 121134 waiver within 60 days of approval by the board. And this concludes staff's presentation.
Right, so the staff recommends approval, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval. Can the legal staff define the supermajority statute for us again? Is he here? I mean, I know it requires 4 out of 5 supervisors, but when one is not present, which is the concern that I have right now, is that this is Supervisor McLeod's district, and he's not present, and if the requirement still that 4 supervisors must vote in favor to be able to pass this, I'd like to have him present to take part of the discussion. That's it's in his district, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to, look, everybody's here, and I know I've got a bunch of cards to talk about it, so I'm going to let everybody talk about it. What I'm getting at right now is that we probably won't make a decision based on the fact that Supervisor McLeod is not here, unless the board members all feel, together that, this won't go. Let's listen to the presentation from the public. Are you done?
Yes, I'm done.
Any questions? No? All right, then, let's move on to the public side. Look, I've got a bunch of, I don't know who filled the form first or who goes second, so I'm just gonna take them as I guess, see them. Did staff, did you mic him? Did you mic Mr. Moody? Okay, so he's mic'd. Okay, well, I'm gonna start with Mr. Charles Moody. He's sitting right in front of us, and I've asked the staff to provide him with the mic so he doesn't have to get up and testify in front of us. So, Mr. Moody, the floor is yours for about 30 seconds. No, I'm just kidding.
That'll be just fine.
3 minutes, 4 minutes.
My name is Charles Moody. I grew up on a farm in the Yuma Valley near Somerton. Now my wife Diane and I live at the Yuma Mesa at 4775 East County 13 3/4, within 300 feet of the proposed tower property. Although we appreciate Michael being as a neighbor, in order to preserve valuable characteristics of our neighborhood, we must oppose the proposed tower. We value the following characteristics of our neighborhood: safety, clear sky views, nighttime tranquility, and property values. Safety. We value our safe neighborhood. The proposed extra tall tower, however, invites accidents from low-flying crop dusters and other aircraft. Regarding the safety of tower transmissions, the applicant has yet to provide transmission frequencies, transmission power, or test results of health effects. At the Planning and Zoning meeting in December, the applicant's agent admitted he did not know if the transmissions had adverse health effects. Without documented reassurances, we neighbors have the right to question the safety of the high-intensity electromagnetic transmissions. It is not up to the citizens to prove this new technology is unsafe. It is up to the applicant to show it is safe, especially for people like us living immediately adjacent to the proposed tower. Clear sky views. To maintain clear sky views, all the utilities in our neighborhood are underground. For my Parkinson's, that's why I'm shaking. I take early morning walks where I treasure seeing the mountains at sunrise. The proposed 140-foot tall tower, twice as tall as the tallest building in Yuma, 14 times as tall as our homes, and with bright flashing strobe lights, will take away these clear sky views. Nighttime tranquility. In the evenings, we like to retreat to the tranquility inside and outside of our home. The proposed 140-foot tall tower will take away from this tranquility, even shining into our bedroom window. Property value. Our biggest investment is our home. Having a huge 140-foot tall industrial-grade eyesore across the street greatly diminishes the property value of our home and the homes in our neighborhood. In summary, we oppose the proposed tower in order to preserve valuable characteristics of our neighborhood of safety, clear sky views, nighttime tranquility, and property value. We respectfully request that you deny special use permit 18-09 for the proposed tower. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Mrs. Moody, would you like to continue? Diane Moody?
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Diane Moody. My husband Charles and I live at 4775 East County 13 3/4 Street, within 300 feet of the proposed tower property. I would like to tell you a bit about our neighborhood and share my opposition to the tower in the form of the following short story. Once upon a time, there was a quaint little country neighborhood out in the counties of Yuma. This little neighborhood was clustered around a dirt road that dead-ended in the main A Canal. The land of the neighborhood used to be all citrus groves. When the first neighbors moved in, they had their own trenches dug to have the utility lines placed underground along their street. The future neighbors did the same. Gradually, the groves were replaced by more homes whose owners had horses and cows and sheep and goats and pigs and chickens and turtles and dogs and cats and children. They all wanted to have the experience of living in the country, away from the city and hustle and bustle, where it gets really dark at night and one can see so many stars, where the neighbors looked out for each other, running garden hoses across property lines when wells went out, and even saving each other's lives by noticing flames in the middle of the night. But one day, 2 small signs popped up on the main entry corner of their little street telling of a proposed wireless communication facility. Several of the neighbors were motivated into action when they learned that a wireless communication facility meant a 140-foot tall tower with flashing strobe lights day and night. The ladies started knocking on doors and talking to their neighbors about the proposed tower. They worked diligently gathering signatures, attempting to talk to as many neighbors as possible. The neighbors they talked to confided their concerns, surprise, and dismay that such an abomination was proposed to be placed so close to their homes and lives. The ladies gathered signatures from over 80% of the neighbors along their street for a letter of opposition to the County Board of Supervisors. The neighbors that could step away from their jobs attended the county public hearing and expressed their concerns in opposition to the proposed tower. The neighbors wanted the supervisors to know, by letter and by speaking, how much they value their neighborhood. The supervisors listened carefully, weighing what was best for the neighborhood and the county. The neighbors applauded with relief and joy when the supervisors voted yes to the neighborhood and no to the tower. And to this day, when they round the corner onto their street, the neighbors thank the supervisors for saying yes to the neighborhood and no to the tower. Thank you.
We got to let that sink in. It's very subtle, very subtle. All right, we'll go on to Yolanda Reta.
Good morning. My name is Yolanda Reta, and I am next door neighbors to Diane and Charles. And I, first of all, I want to say, excuse me if I get a little nervous. I'm not good at speaking in front of people, but I just wanted to express my opposition to the tower. I have 3 young kids, and it does worry me because I don't know what it could carry long term. So that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sarah Nakasawa. Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Nakasawa. I'm Diane and Charles' other neighbor to the east. And I like to refer to my little 5 acres as a cowgirl's horse heaven. So, I mean, I feel real fortunate to live on a dirt road where we can ride our horses up and down. Mike has cows on the corner, sheep. We have really I think, a quaint country feel. When I get off of work in the afternoon, I mean, I can't wait to get out there, and I don't want to have to tell people directions to my house by saying, turn at the next street after the ugly tower. I know it's pretty selfish. I know that technology comes into play here and wasn't excused for approval at the last meeting. But it seems like there has to be a better place than in a neighborhood. And it is a commercial use. I mean, they will be selling space on their tower. It's not for one dish, I'm sure, to pay for this 140-foot tower. It's a commercial instrument. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Heather Etherly? Did I pronounce that right?
Etherly.
Etherly.
Evan Etherly.
Yes, Heather.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm Heather Etherly, and I reside at 4722 East County, 13 3/4 Street, which is actually not in the 300-foot circle. However, it does impact my property. So I'm here to express my dismay about the potential of this. I have lived on that street for 22 years, and as of this day, my husband and I have lived on the street longer than anyone else. We built our property from the ground up. When we bought out there, as you heard in the story, it was all citrus. And we tore the citrus out and we constructed our house. We watched the houses on either side of us go up and the rest of the neighborhood. We raised both of our daughters there, who did 4-H and FFA, had horses, we had numerous dogs. It's been quite the life, and we love it out there. We chose to live out there because there are no streetlights, no sidewalks. It's a dirt road, and we love that. And we don't ever want that to change, which is why we live out there and not in the city. It's a choice. This rural lifestyle is more than just the animals. It's also the ambiance of being able to sit outside and look at the moon and the stars. And that may sound a little bit cheesy, but I have a lot of friends that live in town that say, hey, I want to go to your house and sit out in the yard because it's unobstructed. And not only are we going to have a red light at 140 feet, it sounds like we're going to have one at 70 as well at the midway point. That is definitely going to mess with what I can see right above those orange groves when I'm looking out at the night sky. When we're considering change, and I know change is inevitable, that's just the way it works, but when we're looking at it, I think it's really important that we consider smart growth, and we consider the impact of future development on historic landscape. So when we're looking at smart growth, we know that the mesa is going to grow. We know that. You know, we've been around and around with developers over the years over that, with the subdivisions that are already out there. We know that we need our prime ag land down in Yuma Valley, and that's going to impact the mesa. But when we're looking at that, we're looking at it with a smart vision of what is that going to look like in terms of tax root revenue and not impacting the military base, which is a density issue for them. And I was in the big battle of La Valencia years ago, and it was all about density when they tried to do this big acreage before. And that came back around and re-looked at because that's time marches on. So we know that's going to happen, but this industrial tower is not smart growth. This industrial tower takes away the possibility of what developers in the future may do when they develop out there. Maybe they're not going to put in, you know, $300,000 and $500,000 ranchettes because of that tower. That's going to directly impact my real estate because nobody wants to buy my house down the road or other properties that haven't been developed yet if that eyesore is sitting right there. So that's something that really concerns me. The beauty and the simplicity of living out there is why people want the rural properties. They want to have their kids playing in the front yard and with the dog and walking their goats without worrying about somebody driving by 85 miles an hour and hitting their kid or their dog. And we don't have to worry about that so much, a little bit, but not so much, with the dirt road and that kind of a lifestyle. So when we're looking at these historic landscapes and we're looking at where we are in the flight pattern and so close to the military needs as well, I think it's really important to think about those beautiful dark county skies and why people wanted to live out there. And it's important to think about the ambiance and what people signed on for as a lifestyle choice. So when you're thinking about this, remember that cell companies, they can choose a lot of places to be, and clearly they have on that map that we saw earlier. And there's several cell towers that I walk by every morning when I'm out and about, so I know they're out there. But it's not just about the gray area where you can stick a tower. It's about the impact of the people and the ambiance that's there. So I implore you that when you're looking at this, just because they can doesn't mean that it needs to be allowed. This is a decision that's in front of you now to keep the balance of planning. Don't just stick anything anywhere because we can. Let's look at balance and let's look at our areas and what they should look like in the overall picture of development. It's for the greater good of the community. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you for hearing me today and hearing everybody in our wonderful neighborhood as you are faced with this decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
am I allowed
sure.
to ask
Yes.
a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Can I, Mrs. Etherly, can I talk to you? Ask you a question? Do you have crop dusters and military planes flying over your property?
We do. We do. In fact, I want to say it's in the summer months, there's some kind of operation the military does with the planes, or the helicopters, you can hear them, but you can't see them.
Yeah.
That's directly over my house, and my house rattles every time it happens, and I say, thank you. You know, that's where we live, and we love it. We love it.
Okay, and the crop dusters also?
They do, because we're surrounded by it.
Okay.
I think that's Tri-Rotor's flight path pretty much headed east. coming out of
Yeah,
there.
along the A canal?
I've heard that they use the canal as a navigational
Marker.
whatever. Yeah.
Marker, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the board? She sat down anyway, so. Next one is Carl Sembler.
Morning, Board. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this morning. I apologize for my pants. My wife lays my clothes out every day for 30 years, and I thought corduroy was out in the 70s. So there's my apology there. I had to wear them for her. I also live in the vicinity. I live down on the last house on the dirt road there. My name is Carl Sembler with a K. I have a degree in safety management, and I'm actually an OSHA instructor in regards to safety matters. And one thing we focus in regards to OSHA is looking at blueprints. I'm the safety manager here aboard the installation, Marine Corps Air Station Yuma, and I look at every blueprint and every building, every tower, everything you put up on that base first. And I look at the safety concerns. Okay, for Yuma County, I'm not speaking for MCAS Yuma, but for Yuma County, one thing we put on the base is everybody's a safety observer. Great job at recognizing those employees you had this morning. Everybody is a safety observer. You don't have to be a safety trained person to be an observer. I take that to my home. I hear about this tower, and I'm thinking, okay, what would I do as an OSHA guy? They're putting a tower up. The first thing we do is engineering controls. We have administrative controls, PPE. Engineering controls is get rid of the hazard. Can we get rid of this hazard? Everybody says there's a hazard here. Somebody showed, the gentleman over here showed a slide of all these towers within a mile radius. There's 3 towers there within a mile of each other. Now we're going to add a 4th tower. What we're doing is we're putting the maze for these crop dusters. I live on the A Canal. I have a video, it's 3 seconds long. I would like to show to you, if I can, of a crop duster that happens on a daily basis. Can I approach and show you this picture?
Can you
It's only
plug-
3 seconds long.
Is there any way we can
No,
plug
you
it
can't- we
in?
It's only 3
No?
seconds long.
You know,
Okay.
it's okay.
But you will be amazed.
At how low
This
they
is
are.
every day.
Yep.
Every day.
Sounds like a mosquito.
3 seconds, every day.
OSHA, video, visual
Every
aids.
day, okay? Crop dusters do utilize the A Canal for their navigation. Now, if we're going to put another tower, you're going to have 4 towers within half a mile to 3/4 of a mile of the canal. Okay, we're taking that away from them. Yes, they're supposed to stay at a certain elevation. I got it. I'm supposed to drive 35 miles an hour on 4E. Do I? Sorry, I don't. Okay, so
Notice that.
there's an issue there. Okay, so engineering is, so we go to best, okay, administrative controls, yes, put a light on it. That's the administration control. Okay, put a light on it. But we don't need to go to that route. We can engineer it out and get rid of the hazard. We utilize best practices in OSHA. Best practices, we find out what other people are doing. Phoenix, San Diego, what do? They find a spot for towers, they put a bunch of towers in that one location. Instead of spreading them around and dotting them all over the place, it becomes an obstacle course. I recommend find a different location for this tower, utilize the best practice, and put them all in one area. It makes more sense to me, okay? I myself, on a personal level, I'm a retired Marine. I've done many tours overseas. Like my other brothers and sisters who have served this country, we've come back with, how do I say this? We don't come back the way we went. I might get a little choked up here, but I didn't come back the same way. I was told by a doctor, you need to find a place where there's no light. Light is my trigger. When I go to hotels, see those little green lights on the monitor up there? I have to put tape on those little tiny dots every time I go sleep in a hotel. So I found my little piece in the world, or should I say my great realtor, found a little piece of the world that has no light. I am the last house on that dirt road in the corner, and there's no light in that area. Okay? I look out my kitchen window, and I see the two towers by the peanut patch. That window was closed and covered because if I see those two red, slow blinking lights, to the average person, it's no big deal. But some of the things, chemicals I was exposed to and places I've been, I see those red lights and it triggers things with me. And it takes hours and hours of medication and my wife taking care of me. And I'm shaking right now because I'm worried that I found my peace on this earth that's great for me right now. It's dark. Now you're bringing this, and this is going to ruin my life to where I am going to have to move. If this tower gets put in place, I'm going to have to relocate again. And I've been in Yuma 24 years. I was told 6 years ago to find this dark spot, and I found it. And now it's going away. There's going to be a major, major effect on me and moving my family. And I don't want to do that. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Anybody else? I mean, you don't have to be on the list. If you want to say something, this is the point. All right, thank you. Is there anyone here representing the applicant? Boy, you have a tough in front of you.
Hi, JD.
Morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. I'm John Mann. I'm here representing special use case 18-09. I'd like to, answer any questions you may have, and then I can, address some of the concerns also.
Question?
Yeah, question? Supervisor?
Is there any way you could put that tower at the same place as those radio towers or near those radio towers? So we would have them all in the same location?
This has been quite a while, in the making. A lot of engineering goes into saying where these towers need to be to get to a specific point. And I'm not the engineer that did that, but the radio frequencies, we're able to acquire some signal from like the Somerton, San Luis Valley. We'll come to here, able to acquire some other space in the foothills, and the ultimate goal is to get this signal and get product out to eastern Yuma County, into Welton, Roll, Tacna, support some autonomous ag vehicles and support more of that community. It's a small startup company, so some of the other towers want 6 figures for lease agreements, and that's just not something that was available. So we looked at different opportunities. The engineering that went into this on the front end, gave some circles that said, hey, these are the areas that you can get that bandwidth from the agreed upon customer, and then move it through another space. There's aesthetics of these towers. They're not popular. It's a part of it is a part of life. It is I'm sure everybody in here's got a cell phone and internet, and but they're not a popular thing. So that so in trying to minimize the amount of other towers, that's why this tower is a little bit taller than some of the other ones. There's some bigger players in the industry with Verizon, Sprint, places like that can afford to have multiple 70-foot towers in different areas, and can kind of disallow the smaller guy to co-locate on just based on rents.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Do you plan on having other dishes on that piece, on that?
The original intent would be to have two towers on there, or two
dishes.
Two units on there, one to further broadcast out, and then There's there's discussion with a local company to provide, that would provide internet and cell service from that, and that's kind of to cover some of the, some of those costs and part of that business also. The way this kind of came to be was operating some cell on wheels. That is a business plan that's kind of outgrown and not always able to get the right amount of data. If someone says, hey, we want these services, and you have to acquire the data or acquire a signal, and that's not always an easy case. So having some brick and mortar, or lack of a better term, is a better plan. And it and realized and going into some of the stuff that that these towers are, they're not aesthetically pleasing, and but it's kind of inherent to it. There's a lot of them out there.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
And John, were there other locations that you looked at that aren't as densely populated as this one?
We looked at a lot. We looked at a lot of different areas. There was, and in that area on the mesa, mostly, larger parcels. This was one where it's not. This is actually one of the ones that was less densely populated. That we looked at, but they're all pretty close to that area. It's kind of a if each move, would subsequently require another move to get the signal. So this seemed in the planning that this seemed like the least densely populated area, and least effect kind of pushing it up against 5E to as much as possible.
Any other questions? Sure.
If you look at it though, if you go like even a mile east, I don't see where there's a lot of population. If you go down towards, so you're close to right here to that intersection at 14 and 195, County 14th and 195. There's not a lot of population in that area.
Yeah, and this was, we looked at some different areas, and this was about as far east as, with the kind of current business plan or that stuff been acquired, this was about as far east as we could go, to get from the other valley and then to move over. But yeah, there's and then working with so before today it seemed like it was wasn't that we're gonna have that big of an issue, or wasn't didn't have much of a negative effect on on nearby properties, and pretty remote. There's I think 40 acres of ag next door.
Mr. Chair, I have another.
Sure. So hold on.
Well, I was going to say too.
Keep going.
Okay, you guys were putting this in there. You put a sign up. Do you guys do any outreach to the community where you go around and talk to these people?
No, and that's actually something that in talking with staff, kind of like to do. There was, I know there's a lot of concern from the neighbors, and would like to, see if there's a possibility to have like a neighborhood meeting and utilize one, a room in the library or something. I mean the towers, everyone can kind of understand what what they look like, but I know there was some concern about oil and contamination of the ground. There's no type of oil. There's no outbuilding on this type of structure. There's like a small switchboard. It's smaller than that bookcase back there. It's about 5 feet tall by about 3 feet wide by about 2.5 feet deep, and that's the only other. There's an electrical panel that would go on it that's similar to the ones on a house.
Mr. Chair and John, did you look at the industrial area around the Marine base where people don't live?
Yeah, we looked at all. We looked at a lot of areas. We were kind of confined by, with with what our intent was, where it could, where it could be located. But we looked at all areas. There's not a lot of commercial area or industrial area that was within those radius.
John,
Within that radius.
I think what happens is when people are not particularly familiar with the way those things are designed, they don't understand the circle of service and how far it reaches. And every time you move that circle away, you're connecting to another tower or you're connecting to a repeater.
Right.
And so it's when I've seen this many times. I mean, it's come to us, and what they end up showing us is, okay, this is the range, and you have to stay within this range to provide this kind of service to this specific area. If you move it a mile away, then you may not be able to connect with the next repeater.
And
Those
Mr.
are
Chair-
the kind of issues that come to play in a location search when you search for a location. So if you move it further east, you may not be able to serve Somerton or San Luis, or if you move it further west,
Yeah,
you may
and-
not be able to serve the foothills, and
And you're
it's just
exactly
a
right. And I
range.
know these kind of requests come to you, and that's kind of the game that goes into it. And it's been a long time coming that working working on this, and this is the first tower that
It's-
in the county that we utilize, and then hopefully be out of any type of populated area and into very densely very open areas where we found a need for for this.
You know what surprised me? It's when it first started, it didn't seem to have much opposition. It seems to me, when I look at the history of this, it seems to me like there was some opposition probably at the Planning and Zoning Commission, because I read that in there. And it was mostly the health issues, those type of things. It seems to me like it's gathered a lot of opposition because obviously there's people in there interested that, when there affects their life. I think that what we need to do is direct staff to have more of a public involvement type process like we do with the zoning case where you advise the neighbors within, do we do that with the tower?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we notify everybody within 300 feet of it.
But we need to expand it probably.
Yeah.
In the case of a tower, we probably need to expand it so that what happened now, which is happening now, is that, people within that 300 square foot, actually reached out to neighbors further on, and it's developed into pretty solid opposition. And what it may help us to prevent this from happening to people like you who put a lot of time and a lot of effort in getting the location right and getting the property owner to agree to it. There's a lot of work that's involved to get to this point by people like yourself. And so it's important to me that it doesn't get to a point now where you have a whole neighborhood against it and you've gone through all this effort, all this research and all these things, and you pick the perfect location, technically, you pick the perfect location, but essentially you ended up in a neighborhood that really doesn't want it, and it becomes an issue like it is right now, which is fine. That's what, we're here for. But it seems to me like maybe we need to expand the area that we contact people regarding this. I know that statute only requires a 300 foot, but I think we've gone beyond that many times, especially when a project's going to impact neighborhood like this one is, and maybe that this will be a lesson learned about how we go about, especially in situations like this where really the zoning request, the special use permit, really the property owner is relatively involved, but most of the heavy lifting is done by the agent and by the people who are interested in placing this tower. So just as a point of reference, next time let's just widen the approach, let the neighbors know a little bit more about it. And some of this stuff is like some of the stuff I read in some of the documents refer to 120 feet tower. So now it's 140 feet. The Marine Corps station has a comment, but they refer to aviation issues. So this has become much more common than it used to be. And I think that I can understand how the technology requires that you have more repeaters and more hardware, more things to be able to provide us with the service that we all want. At the same time, I think we're getting to a point now where you have four towers within a couple of miles. I mean, that's a lot, and it's creating having a very definite impact on country living, which I think is what we're addressing now. We're trying to address now. So one last question.
Okay, one last question.
Because
my understanding when I was reading this is that the folks that live around there got a letter on January 11th. What is the when are they how long is it beforehand that they're supposed to be able to get a letter? Shouldn't they have gotten a letter?
The application process
I mean, that's only 13 days
from now.
from today. So shouldn't they have gotten a letter a whole lot sooner than that?
They probably
Or
did,
can we
the 300
change that?
the 300
Mr. Chairman, Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. State law requires notification by first-class mail for properties within 300 feet, a minimum of 15 days prior to the planning and zoning public hearing.
Oh, okay.
So the radius letter went out on November 28th.
Okay, then where did I read?
In addition to
111?
the notification by first-class mail, state law also requires publication in the local newspaper and posting of a sign on the subject property, all with a minimum of 15 days prior to the Planning Commission's public hearing. For the Board of Supervisors' public hearing, state law requires publication in the local newspaper and posting of the property. It does not require notification to property owners within 300 feet of the subject property.
Yeah, and that's what I was referring to initially, that at some particular point in time, and you know, this is not unusual, that, you know, a process begins and people's not paying much attention to it until you actually have something happening, and then people realize, oh, this is happening. So they attend the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, for example, which was about a month and some ago, and then all of a sudden, you get this, I guess this snowball effect where, everybody starts to realize this is happening and people start getting active, and, this is what happens. My comment was in reference to the fact that and I think we have, that direction, we've given that direction to staff before, that in some particular cases, we like them to go beyond the 300 square foot, radius, and we like them to have public hearings, especially on issues that may impact the quality of life of people in the neighborhood. And that's really what I think this kind of situation is starting to develop into. I mean, it's starting to develop into a situation where it's going to impact the neighborhood's lifestyle. And, following state law is what we're required to do, but we're not precluded from widening that and, actually sending out a letter to more people. I mean, it may be that it's worth the effort just to say we advise as many people as we possibly can, but there's got to be a point. I mean, you guys have to know, okay, how far can we go? I mean, so do we have, go ahead.
Thank you for that information, Mr. Chairman. The Planning and Zoning Commission did form a subcommittee meeting about 6 months ago. One of the comments that we received back from the subcommittee members is that they did not want notification areas expanded. They did not want staff to have that discretion.
They're not making the final decision.
I will forward your comments today to the Planning and Zoning Commission subcommittee and the Planning and Zoning Commission, because staff does, in certain instances, expand the notification area for certain cases.
Well, you make sure they get they get the gist of what we're saying. What we're saying is, in this particular case, you rather err on the side of more information than less information. And, in particular cases, not just this one, there are some other projects that have a wider impact than 300 square foot. I think the 300 square foot limit was basically used to determine the level of opposition that would trigger a supermajority. It was really done because some particular, I don't even know if there's any zoning change that only impacts 300 feet, next to it. I mean, that's just state statute. And I understand that we're dealing with people's property rights. But at this particular time, we're also dealing with the neighborhood rights. And things are getting a little more complicated. And so we want to make sure that we follow all statutes, but I like you to send them a message that we don't consider a neighborhood 300 square feet wide. A neighborhood is much wider than that. And it would, help if they acknowledge that and, do a little more work than less work.
Mr. Chair.
And it's just you doing the work. It's not the commission, probably.
Mr. Chair, and Paul, that needs to be considered as something that we could get changed at the state level in the future, maybe next session.
Okay,
To increase
John,
that 300 feet.
before we start getting
Sorry.
into a lot of other discussions, I think that we got to go back to this case. And John, is there something else you want to say on behalf of the project? I mean, I think we understand that you weren't expecting this level of opposition.
No, you're correct, and you hit, and you're exactly right, Chairman Reyes. With a lot of what you said, a lot of work goes into these things on the front end. A lot of the concerns that some of the residents have are addressed on the front end and addressed after this. One of the first things is to go to the FAA and get approval from the FAA. Staff also includes some measures with the FAA. At the Planning Commission meeting, I did talk to some of the residents. There was a concern about, I think, the tower that we kind of talked about being near the peanut patch, and it has down guys, wires on it, and the possibility of having the down guys. That was the big, topic of conversation then. What happens, with this, essentially goes to the board first, and then goes to a structural engineer to complete the design and make sure it meets wind loads and all those types of loads. It wouldn't have, down guys, but financially it doesn't make sense to put the cart in front of the horse with, with some of that stuff. This, this has to be one of the first pieces.
Well, in my particular case, I was always an advocate at trying to make people who build towers understand that the way they look, it's one big drawback. I mean, we've had towers that look like palm trees that weren't so obnoxious looking. That one's probably the worst kind that you can put up in a neighborhood, the lattice ones. And really, they look old, they look outdated, they may be practical. But
and there's some practicality to it, the way that technology changes. That the lifespan of that tower may not be 15 years with the 5G and different networks.
Suffice it to say, I read the letter from the fishing. Is it fish? They were talking about species and noxious weeds and trenching and stuff like that. That I said, okay, fine, but they really weren't in opposition. They just wanted certain things to be looked at. Thank you very much. I think we've heard plenty. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have one more thing I want to talk about. When you were considering where you were going to put this, did you consider at all the property values that would be diminished by putting that big old tower right there on the 5E? Not only that's already developed, but the other side that is planned or has been planned for ranchettes. Did you take any of that into consideration?
We take public, take a lot of public opposition and perceived public opposition, into the process, and how can we limit that? I've looked, around a lot to see if there, the association of realtors, something like that, had something that said they were diminished. I couldn't find anything conclusive. There's there's a lot of towers. I live in the city. There's a lot of towers. There's 2 towers right by a brand new neighborhood that I live by, and I don't believe that those property values have been diminished less than any others. Or more than any others. So we look at the the perceived public opposition and what that would look like, and trying to find the best area. But it was difficult to negate it without finding factual basis. Says, hey, this type of tower or this type of tower, causes that.
Yeah, we get it. And I mean, I don't know how you can answer that question. If you say yes, whatever. I mean, it's just a difficult thing.
We know that that there's a negative perception, and that they're not aesthetically pleasing.
All right. So your answer to that question was yes. You looked at other areas, but you thought this one was a more appropriate one.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah. Well, look. Here's where we're at.
I have a question. Yeah, or to Maggie.
Maggie, can you please come up?
Who determines the size of the sign that we put out there?
It's probably state statute.
Mr. Chairman, no, state law does not require a certain size of sign. It's something that staff developed years ago, and
because you're referring to the fact that sometimes the signs are little signs like
and that's
this,
how
right?
it is. I mean, it's a small sign. I just wanted to, ask a lot of the
Percenters here, yeah.
Percenters that live there.
The residents.
Residents did not get a letter. How did you find out?
From the neighbor.
From, or was it someone that went out?
Hold on a minute. if you're going to ask a question like that, you're going to have somebody come up and answer.
Well, I'll just, because I heard someone was going throughout the neighborhoods collecting signatures.
Diane.
Is
Is that how they, pretty much all the neighbors found out? Or did they see this, did they saw the sign?
Posted,
Mm-hmm.
but they're yellow and they faded quickly and were hard to read driving by. So there were signs, but they weren't very obvious.
That's common. I mean, that's probably one of those comments people make all the time. I didn't see the sign. It faded away in 3 days in the sun or 4 days in the sun. So maybe, again, this is about an effort to let the neighborhood know what the matter is about, what impact they may have. And I think that for us, the philosophy should be, let's do more than less. If it's required, if we need to change the way that we put up, not the way, but the way the signs look for something a little more obvious or something, another color, maybe a red color or something that attracts attention and you can see, it would help us to make sure that people are aware of it. Although it's never going to stop people from coming up and saying, well, I didn't see the sign, but I'm here. And, this is probably where it all ends up. Sometimes we do these things and then we make a decision and the controversy is after the decision's made. And sometimes we get this kind of result from people just being active in their neighborhoods. And this is what you get. You get people in the neighborhood that somebody tells them and word gets out, and so here we are. Is your comment related to
Well, if
making a
something,
better
yeah,
sign?
I think the ones that I see usually that the cities put out when it's a tower or a rezoning, it's a big sign. It's at least 3 by 4 sign.
Mr. Chairman, yes, the city does have bigger signage that they use for their zoning actions. It's something that
You may consider.
like I said, that they developed. It would require more expense and more staff to go out and post those types of signs than the ones that are being posted by Yuma County staff.
We'll use the public works department.
Well, and we need to make sure if they're fading out, we need to make sure we keep good readable signs out there.
For a while.
Through the process.
I have a comment.
Mr. Chair,
hold on, Carl.
that's
I'll get you.
one thing that staff does not do. We're required to post a sign. We don't monitor whether the sign stays up, whether it's faded.
I get it. I get it because I know what you're doing. You're meeting a state statute. And what we like to see, board here likes to see, is that messaging really reaches the people that we like to have them reach. And if that requires a little bit more of an effort, a little more coordination maybe between public works and the zoning and the development services, then that's what we like to see. Okay, we like to see a situation where people really don't have a chance to complain they didn't see the sign because the sign is so obvious that if you didn't see it, you weren't looking. And second, that we go beyond what the state requires because it's so important for the neighborhoods to be aware of what's going on around them before it's too late. And, that we try to fix something that we could have dealt with earlier, like right now. So I think the comments are being made in the spirit of letting more people know and being a little more out there so that people can see this and react to it in time. And that's it. It's not intended as criticism. I really don't. I mean, I think that looking at the past is okay, but if we look at the future, we'd be better served if we just simply understand what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is let as many people know what's going to happen in their areas. And I think of all the things we do as a board of supervisors, planning and zoning is always the one where we start touching people's lives directly. And that's one of the reasons why I think doing more instead of less is probably a better policy from our perspective, from my perspective, and I think the rest of the board can speak on it themselves, but I think it just makes common sense that we try to do more than less. Okay?
Mr.
Any
Chair?
other questions?
No.
You, Supervisor
Thank you,
Simmons?
Mayor.
Supervisor Pancras, no, she's
I'm
busy.
done.
We are going to, Carl, sorry, go up. Yeah, we charged for the second time, though.
To answer the gentleman's question, his question was, how do we note about it? The people who were outside the 300-foot zone, or was it by a lady walking around through the neighborhood getting signatures? The sign is actually about 18 inches by 24 inches. It's a very small sign. It does fade. I did see the sign. I did hear it from the lady that was walking around getting signatures. But when she came to me, she didn't come to me for a signature. She just came out to advise me that, hey, there's something going on our property. Make sure you stop and read the sign. At no time did that lady come to me and say, I'm voting against it. You should too. At no time. I just want to make that
All right. So she didn't tell you a story.
this.
All right. Okay, guys, look, we're in this situation. For this to pass, it requires a unanimous vote, basically, because it requires 4 out of 5. Even though the fifth supervisor isn't here, it still requires 4 out of 5, right?
That's correct. Under statute, unless the missing absent supervisor is absent due to a true conflict of interest as declared, which isn't the case, you would require 4 out of 5.
Yeah, that means that for whatever action, well, no, we can deny it with a majority, simple majority, but to approve it, it will require 4 unanimous votes to approve it. It's up to you guys. Supervisor McLeod didn't ask me to table the item or postpone the item, so I don't know if we're gonna gain any more knowledge by, postponing it, or if we just wanna do what we are here to do, which is to make a decision in this case. Yeah, I'm entertaining a motion.
I'm a,
No?
I'm a no.
Oh, okay. Before we make a motion.
I think if it's I would like to hear Supervisor McLeod. I mean, it's in his district, and if he's in favor, I would like for him to make that motion.
Make that point?
Yeah, or make that point. At least talk. If we can postpone it.
Okay, how long, can we actually table the item or continue the item, to the next meeting, just to give him a chance to have his say, without having to republish, without having to send it back to the Planning and Zoning Commission? We don't want to have this linger on for too long.
Yes, you can, but we're going to ask you to continue it to a specific date and time so the repostings and so forth don't have to be
Look,
redone.
it's not our intention to get you to come back and testify to the same things. It really isn't. But normally when an item that is this somewhat controversial happens in a district, a supervisor district, we like to give the supervisor in that district a say on it. And so, I'm kind of sorry to disappoint you. I don't think, from my perspective right now, I don't think that it has enough votes to pass, even if a motion was made to go ahead and pass it. So other than just the fact that you may have to wait a couple of weeks for the final decision, you've made a very well thought out presentation. You made it you couldn't have done any better representing your views and representing your neighborhood. So sorry that I may have to, and I will probably continue the item to the next meeting, but we need to give the supervisor from that district, an opportunity to say or to take a position on that. If we did something else, we may risk having a decision that can come back to haunt us, because I think that's just common courtesy. So I'm going to continue this item to the next scheduled meeting, which will be February the 4th?
February 4th.
Okay, we're going to continue this item for a final decision February the 4th. It will be, again, a public hearing like it is today, so you do want to come back in case, you want to remake your statement. Supervisor McLeod is pretty good at looking at the tape, of the meeting, so I'm sure he's going to look at it. So it may be just a matter of us opening it up, having a public hearing briefly, having more presentations, maybe giving John an opportunity to deal with the neighborhood, giving more time to deal with the issues. But I'm going to continue this to our regularly scheduled meeting on February the 4th. Thank you very much for coming down, and we really appreciate your points, the points that you make, and we'll take them into consideration in our decision.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay?
we're thinking you should do that by motion, move to
All
table
right.
it to January 4th.
All right, then
at 9
I'll
a.m.
entertain a motion to table this item to continue this item until the February 4th meeting.
So move.
Second.
It's been a motion and second to continue this item to a date certain, which is the next February the 4th meeting, scheduled meeting, at 9 a.m. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for coming.
You got a second and vote.
I don't want to. I can make a decision. Just kidding. All those in favor, wait a minute. Is there any discussion on the motion? No? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? See? It came out the same way. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you very much for giving us an opportunity to hear your views on the subject, okay? Thank you. Sorry not to give you, closure on this.
Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it very much.
The next item is development services. Discussion and possible action concerning options to address a request by owners of 54 parcels in the Foothills 1 through Foothills 4 subdivision to allow one RV upon a lot parcel for up to 4 months in a 12-month period when the principal residential building is occupied in the manufactured home subdivision zoning district, consider rezoning the properties to the recreation vehicle subdivision, RBS zoning district. Who's taking this? Mr. Rubio? You have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Juan Leal Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. In March of last year, staff received 52 petitions from property owners in the foothills. The map in front of me shows in crosshatch the property owners that signed the petition to requesting the commission initiated rezoning of 54 parcels in the foothills number 1 through number 4 from MHS to RVS. Historically, 2 similar actions have been denied by the board, Commission Initiative 1001 and Commission Initiative 0601, due to conflict with CCNRs, incompatible uses, and land use densities, traffic congestion, and other factors noted on the memo that you have with you, which is the staff report. During the conclusion of Commission Initiative 0601, there was some discussion by the board at that time with staff to explore other methods that could allow visitors to temporarily reside in RVs, and asked to bring these options back to the board again for review in the future. During this process, staff met with the organizers of the current petition to find and explore other options that could satisfy their needs, which include the right to have visitors on their properties for short periods of time on a seasonal basis. The current process, which is a temporary use permit at a fee of $355, and also being able to apply to allow guests up to 1 year with no reapplication submitted within a 12-month period, that does not work for them. Based on research that staff made, and other than rezoning the properties to RVS, staff believes that a good option would be to add a new section to allow temporary seasonal RVs in every residential zoning district. This could not only be used on a seasonal basis when friends, relatives, or other guests visit the Yuma community for short periods of time, but it can be used by the community as a whole during any part of the year. However, the Planning Commission asked staff that include the possibility of limiting the occupancy of one RV to the manufactured home subdivision, since the petition received are from residents in the foothills number 1 through number 4 subdivisions, which are zone MHS. A proposed text to section 1108.19 could read, the occupancy of one recreational vehicle is allowed upon a lot or for up to 4 months in a 12-month period when the principal residential building is occupied in the manufactured home subdivision. Manufactured home subdivision zoning districts located outside the high noise zone or accident potential zone. Occupied recreational vehicles should adhere to all minimum development standards as the principal dwelling and shall not be used as rentals. An alternative solution would be to allow seasonal RVs for guests on a temporary basis with a fee. Said alternative would constitute an amendment to section 1107.03 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance and an amendment to the fee schedule to adopt a fee based on the time and costs incurred to process this type of permit. Staff proposes a fee of $175. The proposed wording could read as follows: 1107.03, temporary buildings and uses requiring permits. Section O, the occupancy of one recreational vehicle for guests, relatives, and/or caretakers in conjunction with a permitted principal use for up to 4 months in a 12-month period in the manufactured home subdivision zoning district located outside the high noise zone or accident potential zone. An occupied recreational vehicle shall adhere to all minimum development standards and the comprehensive building code, adopted international fire code, environmental health laws, flood control district regulations, and public works standards, and shall not be used as a rental. Staff,
go ahead, so finish. Sorry.
Staff recommends the board return this item to the Planning Commission to either initiate an amendment to the zoning ordinance as discussed previously, or to initiate a rezoning of the properties to RVS, or to leave the zoning ordinance and zoning district as is.
Wow. You know, take it, just give government a chance to fix a simple problem, huh? Look, this one, the supervisor that is missing asked that we continue the item. I think that there's going to be a lot of discussion on this item anyway. The supervisor for that district, Mr. Simmons, so has agreed. I just want to give you my views before we make a decision to send it back and get more work done. Actually, I don't see how doing Section 1108-19 by itself is going to solve that problem. I think that you're going to have to combine, Section 1108-19 and the 1107.03 into a situation that allows you, when you allow that use, to be something that we can monitor. Otherwise, it will become an issue that is common in areas like San Luis, where people put a mobile home there for a little while and then they start renting it, and then you don't know when they go and when they come back because it's there all year. I don't see how we can change it so people can stay there for a year and get another permit the next year. I don't see how we can monitor any of that without some sort of a fee structure that allows us to at least pay for the inspector. So to me, a better solution would be to blend those two into something that has that particular change in the zoning structure with a permit process that allows us to check on it and make sure that when a person stays in there with an ability to hook up to sewer, to hook up to power, to hook up to all the services, and that be monitored by the county. Rezoning is not going to work for me. That'd be like spot zoning of 52 parcels, and then the neighbors will want to, hey, if they did it for them, why don't they do it for us, kind of thing? And it's just not going to be. To me, rezoning itself is just not an issue.
Mr. Chairman, the other thing is that whatever they're going to charge should be the same amount as what we charge if they do that, would be the same amount as if they stayed in a mobile home park. I mean, in an RV park. Yeah. To me, what we're doing is hurting the people that have invested.
Oh, in other words, what you're saying is this will have an impact on the rental of the spaces in other areas.
An economic impact on all of those folks out there that own and operate mobile home parks.
Well, okay, but you see that is an argument that I guess they're going to get to make. I mean, people who do that. The fact is that this started, from my perspective, it started as people saying, look, I cannot have someone come over and stay with me for 3 or 4 months, and I have enough space, which to me, it's also going to come into play. I mean, there are some parcels in there that I look at and go like, how can you put 2 in there?
Well, Mr. Chairman, my concern one is, like I said, how will it be monitored? A short visit to me is not 4 months. That's a week or so visiting, not more or less 4 months is camping and staying in place. And again, like you said, the septic, are they going to hook into the septic that's on site? If not, they're going to have to put a septic system in. And then all of a sudden now you've opened it up to where, it's more or less, you're saying two residences on one lot.
Yeah, and is a septic large enough to be able to handle those residents?
And, that's my concerns in this.
And I couldn't help but notice that you have a restriction on the noise zone and the accident prone zone, which is what we're probably going to start putting into a lot of this, new zoning ordinances, to make sure we get that coverage that says to people, look, if you're in a high noise zone, which is over, a landing area for the, Marine Corps or something, high decibel, that's what I was looking for. A high decibel zone, you're going to be limited in your density just simply because, we're going to get opposition. We're going to have encroachment issues.
Yes, and we don't want that.
And we don't want that. So to me, the idea to send it back to Planning and Zoning Commission is fine, with the comments that you've heard. And please, understand that what they need to send to us as much as possible is something that addresses our concerns. One of them is, what impact will it have on the other people who rent or people who have made an investment in the mobile home parks. Second, we think that 4 months is not like a guest visit. We have a saying in Spanish, if you stay over 2 weeks, you start to smell. If you're visiting, we need to deal with those issues, because what we don't want to do is have this be an allowance that's spotty like this, and have people complain about it, come over and say, why did you give these people that break and you don't give us that break? There has to be some size issues, and some of these parcels they look too small to be
Very
able to
small.
fit two people. So there must be
They are small ones in
square
there.
footage. No, hold on a minute. Let us finish. We'll open it. I will open it to the public, even though it may not be necessary, because we're going to send it back to the Planning and Zoning Commission, where you would have to make the comments that you want to make. This is not going to be a decision for us right now until we get something from them. We just want them to be aware of our concerns, and they have to be inspection, size, time, impact on other people. I cannot see how we're gonna do, we're not gonna do, I'm not gonna accept a rezoning of 54 parcels or 60 parcels alone. That's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen through me. I mean, it may happen, I don't know what the rest of the board would say, but I would say that's a non-starter. So what we're dealing with is, we have a large group of people who want to be able to take some gets over for some time. We don't think 4 months, we think 4 months a season.
That's a whole season. That's a whole
And that
summer
doesn't,
season.
that's not really, somebody coming in from Canada to visit for a week or 2 or 3. That's somebody coming over to stay with me for 3 or 4 or 5 months. And that really isn't what those lots were designed for. And I understand people's need to have somebody come over and stay with them, and it's fine, I get it. But we're not I'm not inclined to look at it positively if it means that people are allowed to stay for months, basically for free with their friends, for a long time, especially if those areas are not designed for that kind of density. So those are the comments, and I think you heard the comments from Mr. Simmons. Supervisor Porches, do you have anything to add to all that?
No,
Should let's see what they come up with?
I think so.
All right,
Mr. Chair?
you? I'll get to it in a minute. I'll get to you guys.
A large majority of the people who live out there on mobile home lots or in foothills 1, 2, 3, 4, are people who are only here for 4 months out of the year. They have their residents out there that's here. They're here for 4 to 5 months, and then they go when it gets hot.
Some of
They
them I
go
suppose
somewhere
they do.
else. So this is a winter residence for them, and they have another one somewhere else. So to me, adding another person to those lots,
Another two-person family.
another family to those
Unit.
lots is
Unacceptable.
not, I'm not in favor of it.
Maggie?
So.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, one of the proposals that's before you today, which is on page 3 of the staff report included in your packet,
Yeah, we have it.
was the proposed amendment to section 1107.03, which is adding section O to that section.
Yeah.
That will alleviate some of your concerns as far as monitoring, as far as obtaining a permit to be able to put in a second dwelling unit or an RV as a second dwelling unit, and also making sure that all environmental health codes, building codes, and zoning ordinance requirements are met. That will accomplish your concerns or address your concerns about.
Yeah, and I do want to clarify something. When I look at this, I looked at it as an RV park. It's a mobile home subdivision, which means those lots are pretty large. I shouldn't have said that. There is probably space in most of these lots for a second, visitor, but they look really small.
Yeah, most of those lots are at least 15,000 square feet.
No, that's big. That is big.
Most of them. However,
15,000 square feet. That was a large size. Large size.
15,000 plus square feet.
That's
which
right.
is at one-third acre plus.
Yeah, I get it now when I
That's
looked
very
at that.
large.
Yeah, I was
That's
mistaken.
large
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, I got it.
Mr. Chairman?
I made a mistake.
They are.
They're not small lots. They're
No.
huge lots.
Mr. Chairman, as far as the time frame, what does the board want to consider as far as the amount of time that the RV can stay on the lot? The proposal by staff was 4 months.
But that's almost a
Does the board
season.
want to give us a time frame or?
That is going to be the clincher here.
Yeah.
That, when somebody's asking for someone to visit, that 4 months is not a visit. 4 months is a season.
Yeah.
So, if you want to have somebody stay there for a month, I can deal with that.
Yeah,
Even
that's-
maybe 2 months, I can deal with that. But 4 months, It's way beyond a
Well,
visit.
November, December, January, February, there's our
There's a
season right there.
Yeah.
I
So-
would say a month.
A month?
Mm-hmm, me too.
You know, if somebody wants to visit, that is truly a visit, you know, a month.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if somebody wants to stay 4 months, that is longer than a visit.
That's
And to me,
residing.
that is taking business away from people who have invested in
That's
having
right.
that business.
That's
So
right.
to me, if somebody wants to have a guest stay for a month with them, and they want to invest the money to set up a second dwelling unit and get a permit for it, I don't, you know, that permit shouldn't be 100. If it's a month, we may not charge. You know, we may only charge the whatever it takes to go and inspect it the first time to make sure
Right.
they meet all the regs, you know, all the health and safety issues. So we do need to have a fee if it's going to be a permit,
Right.
if it's going to require a permit. But again, 4 months is too long. We're looking at 1 month, maybe. If you stretch it to 45 days, I may still go for it, but
And
not longer than
Mr.
that.
Chair, Mr. McLeod.
Yeah, Mr.
Go
McLeod,
ahead.
look, let me just make this clear. We're not making a decision today. We're sending this back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for they to discuss it and send it back to us. So he'll get his chance. And he's never been shy about making his views known anyway. He probably called his Planning and Zoning Commission member and laid on him. So, you know, we're not gonna make a decision today. We're gonna send it back to Planning and Zoning Commission, but we're gonna send it back with the comments
Bless you.
that you heard right now, okay? We're not gonna consider 4 months. We're going to consider something that has a permit to it, that can be checked, where health and safety is important. And we understand these are large lots that can have that happen without creating a disturbance in terms of density. And it does need to have some, you know, some restrictions in there about noise zones and you know, what do you call those lending, whatever, patterns or whatever they call.
Yeah, but they
Okay.
need, like, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, they need to have power hookups.
Yeah.
Because people
Power
shouldn't have
and
to sit
sewer
there and
hookups.
listen to generators run if they're running off their generator, you know, as well as the septic.
All right. I'm sorry, ma'am. Did you want to just clear out the size of the parcels, or you want to say something else? Come
I
up.
do, may I?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Pleasure to be here.
And your
Mr.
name?
Chairman,
My name is Margaret Jenner. I own
Oh, it
1212.
wasn't supposed to be a public hearing?
it's a public hearing. Let's make sure everyone
Oh, yeah,
understands
I'm
you're
opening
opening
it
it
up to the
up.
public hearing, yes.
Make sure they get a
Sorry,
chance to
ma'am, I
speak.
should have opened it to a public
That's
hearing.
all right, thank you. 12123 South Renee Avenue, subdivision 4. I'm understanding, Mr. Simmons, you're my representative, is that correct? Thank you, nice to meet you, and you others as well. I'm here representing myself, I'm only speaking for myself, and the need for me to have a home where I can invite friends and number one, sir, not be charged, because if you in your homes were required to purchase a permit to have guests stay with you, when you think about it, it's rather bizarre. I want to know if you folks are into simplifying things. It's a simple situation that has bounced back and forth between the developers, the zoning, and you folks who have perhaps better things to do, because
No, these are
on
the
the
things
face
we
of
do.
it,
This is
well,
fine.
better things, I'm saying to simplify things, I want to have company on my 1/3 acre lot. I purchased it with that in mind. I have many friends from all over the United States and Canada who are full-time RVers, who come and go throughout the entire year, and we are a neighborhood of families, not a seasonal neighborhood with small lots in the newer foothills. We're in one of the original foothills lots that are expansive. If you were to look at Google Maps, with all due respect, and look at the density as you look at subdivision 4, and then pan out into the foothills area that's a new subdivision, you'll
Different.
see density. In our area, you see ground, you see palm trees, you see 1/3 acre lots. It's amazing the difference.
All right, let me just say a couple of things.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I admit it, I was mistaken. I thought this was an RB subdivision. I didn't look at the size. You can tell when it's an MHS 10 that it's at least 10,000 square foot lot. So, you know, I can tell now that these are large lots. Second, in reference to your visitors, normally guests come and stay with you, not in their RV. or they're, the separate unit. That's what makes this different. Third, if we have a permit fee, it would be so that the county can go and inspect first before you can have them, so you would have the hookups necessary. Unless you're asking for them to come in, just park their RV and be with you inside your home, which is a normal visitor. A normal visitor. We have a guest house. We have a guest house, which, as a matter of fact, was one of the controversial items before this, the guest house situation. We have a guest house regulation that allows people to have guests, to build guest houses, In your particular case, or in the particular case of this area, what you want is to be able to have guests who bring their vehicle in your parcel. And what we're saying is, if you're going to allow them to be in your parcel, but they're going to live inside your house, there's no need for any of us to intervene. It's just a storage situation. But if you're going to have them there and living in their trailer, we at the county need to look at the health and safety issue, and that's where the permit fee will come. Maybe we can call it a one-time permit fee so that it allows us to inspect the property, make sure that they can hook up to electrical, to sewer, and then you won't have to get a permit every time someone visits. That could be part of what we suggest to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Okay?
Yes, sir, thank you. And that consideration has already been addressed by those of us who have had the experience of living only in our motorhomes year-round for many years. We carry our water with us, and we take our waste away with us. So
I get it.
We have holding tanks, sir. We have holding tanks for fresh water. We have holding tanks for wastewater.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
It's my electricity. I'm offering it to my friends, whether they shower in my home or shower in their motorhome. Their waste is being held by the technology that's provided in this year-round environment of ours. There are so many of us. And indeed, I'll just make one point that might be of interest to the board. There are more women full-time RVers than there are men. So women are smart planners. We know how things work. And we don't want to encumber you with domestic decisions. We are 100% capable of handling our own business. We don't need to be permitted or monitored because you don't have the manpower, nor do we as the taxpayers of that community want to put that burden upon you. And it's not as though my neighbor is going to be complaining about me having a
You need to talk to
happy
54 people who want to be given that.
That's
That's
it.
the problem. We wouldn't be here if it
That's
wasn't because 50-some people filed to have this done.
That's it.
Okay, so I don't know if there were women in there, but there probably weren't.
I'm speaking for myself.
I know that. But we're gonna. This is an opportunity for you to give your views. You will have that opportunity with the Planning and Zoning Commission, because if we're dealing with this, it's because somebody asked us to. You're right. You're right. But and it is the issues that come up that makes us respond to it. If somebody would have come up and said, "All we want is the ability to have somebody parked for a few days there and something else," I'm sure that if that was the case, we wouldn't be dealing with such a complex issue, because it gets complex as we go along.
Yes,
Because there's so many different situations, life situations, that you try to deal with that you can't possibly cover them all. I do appreciate your points and the view that you have of this, and I wish that particular opinion about not needing any one of us to actually intervene in this process was followed by a lot of people, including the people who have now asked us to deal with this issue. But we're sending it back to Planning and Zoning. You have an opportunity to let them know your views before they get back to us. There will be a process.
Thank
Okay?
you.
Right?
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay.
Morning,
Morning.
Chairman and Board. My name is Richard Czar, and I live at 14444 Pamela de Fortuna. And I'd like to point out a couple of things. Originally, the intent was to rezone to our recreational vehicle zoning, and that was attempted in '06. And there were 5 reasons it was denied, and then it was followed up in 2010, and there were the same 5 reasons that were not mitigated previously, it was denied for. So I want to point that out, that I think an addition to the text is with the zoning that's in place, which for manufactured housing refers you to 1106, which indicates that you cannot live in an RV overnight, that it's in conflict if you have this text that says, well, you can do it for 4 months, 1 month, whatever, but in the zoning ordinance it says you can't. So I'd like to point that out. The other thing is, in regards to a permit fee, a one-time permit fee, you need to think about that down the pike as we go through this process, in that how are you going to determine later on after that whether somebody's staying beyond a month or for the whole season, for that matter.
Yeah, it's a complex issue. I know, and sometimes if you permit something, there's a snowball effect.
Yes.
And then we end up with, the road to hell is paved with good intentions thing, where we have all kinds of complicated issues. But, I mean, it's our job to try to deal with them, and we're going to try to deal with them the best we can. Sure.
Isn't your street on the other side of
It
the
is, yeah.
Okay.
And what brought me into the fold on this thing is, prior to the change to just back to MHS, they had, the staff had recommended that all the districts, the zoning districts in the foothills area, be included. So at that meeting, the first meeting in November, I gave opposition. They came back in December, I think it was in December, and recommended, or the November decision was to pull it out, come back and just include MHS. So, my district is out of the loop on this, which I was grateful for. However, I got to thinking back on the whole thing, and what this may mean in the future is that you're setting precedent, and you're setting precedent by making a text change and not a zoning change. And I think their district should be I think they need to go back a third time, and staff needs to work with the residents out there to try to mitigate those reasons that they were denied, instead of having this text put in that down the road the other subdivisions are going to start. There may be a few people that say, well, we want that as well. So we're back in this process for years to come. That was my reason for being here and objecting to it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sure.
can I ask what your lot size is out there?
My lot size is 1.25 acres.
Okay.
I'm in a last subdivision in the northeast foothills.
No, it's
We're suburban ranch 1. We're low density, and that's the thing. When you look at the wisdom of zoning, when we purchase, you have all these choices. You can live in an RV park. You can buy a suburban or a recreational vehicle lot, or you can buy a lot that doesn't allow it, right? You do have choices, and I think zoning gives us choices, and when you start sticking this stuff in, you start taking choices away from the purpose, what I think is the purpose of zoning, and the wisdom of it.
Well, and not only that, but somebody needs to remember that there are also some other regulations called CCRs that anybody can make effective. So if the CCRs do not allow a certain use, even if you get it zoned for that use, the CCRs may prohibit that from happening, and a resident can enforce or try to enforce those CCRs, creating a legal problem. I understand that some of the older subdivisions had CCRs that actually allowed.
Ours does have CCNRs, and without an HOA, so that means each individual has to go after the violator of the zoning.
Right.
If it is not a zoning violation to CCNR, then their only choice, if they don't comply, is to sue them.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I think zoning ought to take care of us on that, to prevent neighbors from having to sue neighbors where CCNRs are in place. And I would presume that most of the new subdivisions that get built probably have developers put CCNRs in place. So I don't think you should conflict them. And it gets back to this issue of 2006 and 2010. The 5 reasons for denial, none of those have been mitigated. And some of them could probably very easily. One is a PM10 because of gravel roads. Well, how about getting those roads chip sealed and or paved, for instance? You may have to assess the lots for that if it isn't in the county's budget or on their horizon to get that done, because I would presume eventually you want to pave or chip seal down the road because of continuous maintenance on those roads. But that's something that could be mitigated by the people that live in that. It means they may be assessed the cost
we
of
get it,
that,
improvement
but it would
districts.
spread out over all those lots, and it could minimize the impact on their finances by doing it through property taxes or whatever,
They
a
do
fee that is
Right,
done
we're
over a
getting
period of
into,
time.
into the weeds here. You know, a
But
lot
they
of
do
this
it in an
stuff, you
improvement
need to go, look, if we're listening to all this, and it's fine, we can listen to them, but the process is being sent back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. You need to make those points again to them before they
will.
get to us.
Yes, sir.
And then if they get to us to a point that you still feel that there needs to be some clarification or not some direction given before we make a decision, we will listen to that again. But getting into a lot of these details at this particular time when we're sending it back,
I understand.
find that
Yeah.
there's a lot of.
Well, you opened it for public
Yeah, I
comment, so
know,
you got
I
my
know,
2 cents.
I know. But
Anyhow,
it's
that's
what we
all I
do.
have, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. All right. Any more comments? I'm afraid to say that, but you know, any more comments? No, we're gonna take it back and we're going to send it back to planning and zoning. I think a motion is in effect to send it back to planning and zoning with the comments that we made, to be made to them and telling them that, you know, they need to send us some sort of product we can make a decision on. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and second to return this item to Planning and Zoning Commission, refer the item to Planning and Zoning Commission for their review and for their recommendation to be sent back to us at some particular point in time, relatively soon.
And the next meeting then will be?
Oh, no, that is not set yet. They have to set their Planning and Zoning Commission items.
Thank you.
Okay, and they'll let.
Then once they see it, it'll come back to us.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, what the board wants commission to consider is an amendment to section 1107.03 and propose a new section O.
I didn't realize we're giving them that specific direction. And I know that staff brought those, you know, those kinds, and they wanted more direction than that. And I'm inclined to do that. I just don't want to preclude them from looking at something else, although they asked for direction, right? So how does the board feel in terms of giving them direction? Are we looking at a zoning change, or are we looking at a permitting process, or regulatory process? What are we looking at? What do we want them to look at? Do we want them to still look at all options, or do we want to narrow down the process so that they
Mr.
can?
Chairman, the planning commission did look at all 3 options. They chose to move the item forward in order for the board to provide them with direction as to which option they should consider.
That's a tough one.
I like the second one, but
I don't
I mean,
want a
rezoning.
zoning change.
Zoning change, you know, impacts everyone. It may be cleaner in that respect, but it isn't detailed enough for me to feel that there is a way for us to check on it. Once you do a zoning change, that's it. That's the last time we'll deal with it. And that kind of worries me in this particular point, because to me, although there's well-intentioned people, there are also people who may abuse it, and we need to be able to monitor that. And we can't really monitor if it's a zoning, well, we can, but a zoning violation is really a process that really involves a lot of time and effort. And there may be many of those. So I think the regulatory one, I'm inclined to think that we can deal with this through a regulatory process, which is a permitting process. I know.
1107.03.
That's right. I am inclined to look at that. I don't know.
Mr. Chair?
I think permitting's probably the better way to go with it, because that way you got control over each property. You know what's going on.
I have a comment. Yeah, permitting is fine, but somehow or another, we need to make sure that this stay doesn't go into this stay. You know what I'm saying?
But that's-
If we
it's monitoring.
narrow it to, monitoring. If we narrow it to 1 month, how do we determine that they're only there 1 month? Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, if we do it for 4 months, if we do it at any time, that's going to be.
Mr. Chairman, if an amendment to section 1107.03 O is approved by the board, staff would issue a temporary use permit. Then at the
end of that,
when the expiration comes, or when that permit or time limit expires, staff would go out and inspect to make sure that that recreational vehicle it's no longer on the property or has been
Okay.
disconnected.
Okay.
See, that's what doesn't make much sense. It will involve a lot of time and effort by the planning, by the department, the zoning enforcers. And so, look, come up with a yearly process. It can't be a month process where you check, I mean, one permit per year, that kind of stuff, so that people, or maybe, one-time fee to inspect the property, make sure it's, good enough, and then after that, the permit won't, it won't be as costly. Maybe the first time permit would be, I don't know, $150, and then after that is $50 a year or something that works, that doesn't become an issue every year, which it will be. Well, we'll take it up to the Planning and Zoning Commission. This is not, right now, we're just spending a lot of time talking about details who may or may not come back to us. And when they do come back to us, we can discuss it again. But this is, we're going in circles. Give them some direction. We like the regulatory one better than the zoning one, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then there will be details. All right. Okay, yes? Yes, well, if I can get to it, right? All those in favor of the motion, did somebody make a motion to revert it?
Yeah.
I've already forgot.
And then.
And I
Wayne
second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Because I think I opened that one up. No more discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have two more items, I think, left. We have to go back to item, what was it? County Administration, discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative item. A report to the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills in the Arizona State Legislature with impact to Yuma County, and an update in the development of talking point legislative memorandum. Paul?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Members of the board.
Good afternoon. Almost.
Yeah. Paul Melcher, Director of Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Chairman, you have several handouts in front of you, and I'd like to start with the handout that is related to the talking points.
Okay,
for
got
the
it.
commercial
You should
crossing.
take, yours is behind there, I think.
Oh, there they are. Thank you.
Give me those ones, because I don't think.
You didn't get it.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
You took them?
I
All
thought
right.
they were Russell's.
Yeah, no. Okay, continue, sorry.
At the first meeting in January, we had discussed the issues with crossing at San Luis 1. I wanted to provide you this update just to give you an overview of what I've been working on in relation to that item for the talking points. One of the things that I've developed overall in speaking with both staff from the city of San Luis and then with CBP Director John Schwam, I would summarize it this: there are certainly some significant economic impacts when the crossing times increase. And as you can see, they're detailed here. We're looking at how much the city would stand to lose if there are delays, how much overall it means to the region, and what those specific impacts are to the farmers. One of the things that I've been working on the last couple of days in developing the final parts of this talking points are related to overall efficiency of the port. I think one of the things that we can all agree on, and that I've heard the feedback as I've been developing the talking points, is there needs to be something addressed with appropriations at the federal level to get staffing levels at San Luis 1 that are commensurate with the volumes. After talking with the port director, it's very apparent that San Luis is the busiest port in the state of Arizona, both in terms of the pedestrian crossings and personal vehicle crossings. And if they're understaffed, typically by about 30 to 50% in relation to some of the other ports in Arizona, that becomes a factor in their ability to process travelers coming northbound into Yuma County into the United States. So I just wanted to give you this update, Mr. Chair, and to let you know that I'll be working some of those talking points into this as well. Because when we're talking about both ports, we're really talking about staffing and efficiency. We have been talking about, and I should say we as the stakeholders, that would be several of the freight handlers who have also been discussing this with, to talk about in comparison to Calexico. So we're really aiming to develop talking points that would put both of the ports of entry on an operation level that's commensurate or equal to Calexico, to prevent people from having to port shop, both from a commercial standpoint and when the lines get long from a pedestrian or personal vehicle crossing.
One comment regarding your comments here or the talking points that you provided for us on the crossing issues. First of all, you have three talking points, and both of them talk about the negative impact of long lines and wait lines. And so, your main, the main statement as you address this is that, we have to maximize utilization. If you could get back to Mr. Schwan or whomever's over there and have him explain or give us a sense of what they need, what they want specifically, what they need and want to be able to do this. Because what happens is when we go over there and we say this, and we generally say it, and we're not giving them specifics of what we want in return, we end up just making the point, but not giving them something to work on. I mean, I'm talking about the legislative aids. So we need to tell them, I mean, I know that, as a former mayor, I can tell you right now that going over there and telling them you need more staffing at the port as a solution to the long wait lines, it's an easy one. The problem is you have better facilities, supposedly more people, and you have less people crossing because there's longer lines, and the lines aren't getting any shorter. So how do we explain that, and how do they explain, having $6.2 million invested in the new port of entry, and the lines are still longer than normal? And if they say it's a staffing issue, then what's the point of asking for better facilities if they don't have staff to manage them? So, we need to have some sort of a concise request. And I know they can't lobby. They'll tell you that every time, at the border. They can't lobby themselves. But that's what we do. The problem is, what are we lobbying for? I mean, we're making the points, we're talking about the impact, but we're not really asking our congressman people to do something specific for us. Because I'm tired of asking for infrastructure that doesn't solve the problem.
No.
I mean, if you have 10 open lanes, and you only use 5 or 6 most of the time, what's the problem? Is it staffing? Because it certainly doesn't seem to be the facility. It would be a problem if the infrastructure wasn't ready for as many people, if I could see that all 10 lines or 8 lines are all continually open. But when you see them close 2 or 3 lanes all the time and open them sporadically, then the question is, you don't have enough people? And when you go through the primary and go to the secondary and you find 12 people waiting for someone to be sent to secondary, you start thinking, well, it's a matter of shifting, it's a matter of priorities.
It's
really.
efficiency.
It's
yes.
efficiency, right. It's efficiency. It's not a matter of infrastructure, and it's not a matter of staffing. If you have enough staffing or you're not asking for more, and still the lines keep getting longer. Because the number of people crossing is now starting to tail or decrease, because it's like a catch-22 situation. It's just people just react to what they see. So anyway, I guess my point is, look, we need to know what we're going to ask for. We need to explain there's a problem, but we need to have a little more specific on what we're going to be asking them to do for us. Infrastructure is an easy one. We'll keep asking for better infrastructure at the legal border crossings because we think that's good for the trade between the countries and for the flow of people that are legally able to cross. That we'll ask for. But the port of entry here, officials here, need to give us something that explains or that at least justifies what's going on. And, border security will come up, and thankfully they have removed the concrete barriers they put in there. And so they are able to use 2 more vehicle lanes now. They seem to be using them every once in a while. But this is like a traffic backup or a traffic, what do you call those, congestion, right? At 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning when all these farm workers are trying to cross, the inefficiency. There used to be a staging area where you could put these people to line up. Now it's full of concertina wire, right? Mm-hmm. That was where they're supposed to line these people up. Anyway, look, I'm getting into too many details. The point is that, before we go to Washington, I'd like to, if possible, know what is it that it needs to expedite the process. What is it that the border, the crossing, what is it that customs or the Homeland Security people need to expedite the crossing?
Mr. Chair.
Hold on. One other. Okay, hold on. You had something to say because you.
I was just going to add that, honestly, I don't think it's a staffing issue. It's not. We've been pushing for that for the longest time, but it's not, because all of a sudden, since August of last year or June of last year, they have, at this port of entry, 2 or 3 officers right at the line.
entrance, yeah.
In the entrance.
At the
Where
physical end.
were those when we were asking for more staff to have more lanes open? Then all of a sudden they have 3 officers over there. So it's not a matter of staffing anymore.
Or infrastructure.
Or infrastructure.
They have a
It's just the way they've been doing things, and they're gonna keep on doing them. And we, as elected officials, just, hear, oh, more staffing, but it's not. We're just giving them, yeah.
But my question is, are there requirements at the border that these men or these people, these employees, that the border,
What are you getting to?
the head of the guy has to be? So there's, in secondary, there has to be so many people and on the line,
Well,
whatever's, I mean, do you know what I'm saying? Are
Yeah,
there
as a
rules?
person who's been dealing with that for 30 years, there was a point in
No,
time where I asked, do you have a time limit for the primary inspector to take care of whatever he takes care of initially before he sends someone to secondary? I was told no. The primary inspector can take as much time as he needs to on the primary and then send people to the secondary. So there is no way to effectively ask them to keep a certain time sequence that allows, it's like I said, it's like a traffic backup. I mean, it stops, you can
That's
tell.
what we need to ask for then.
You can tell when an officer, you can tell the officer's attitude just by the line you're in. Because sometimes you're in a line that moves, and the next line is slow, and it's just the officer. That's the problem, and the fact of what happens at the border. That those lines move at the speed that the officer, that the frontline officer, feels like. If he's in a bad mood, and he's going to slow everybody up, it's going to ask all these questions, there's nothing you can do. It is one of the few places in this country where you're guilty before you're proven innocent. You have to prove your innocence when you come to the border, and that's okay. I mean, I understand that. I understand that they have a law enforcement function and they think that's a top priority. I understand that they have a union, a very strong union. I always talked about, why can't Border Patrol people help? Well, they can't, because only immigration. Why can't immigration customs? There's a multitude of things they could do to improve it. To me, it's been a matter of them wanting to do it, and it's reflected on who's running the port of entry. Who's running the port of entry really has a lot to do with how, how the process takes place. So again, before we go to Washington, please do a little bit of more research, contact these people, ask them, okay, what is it that you want us, what message do you want us to carry? And please don't tell us, just we need more staffing. Tell us specifically what we can do to help. Otherwise, all we're doing is taking a complaint to the federal government where we're not asking for a real solution. I give you an example. If they think this port is inefficient, which I think it's inefficient, and what they want is for us to pursue opening up private crossing on the eastern portion, that would be something specific we can ask. You know what I mean? We can say, look, this isn't working out. It's a bottleneck. That's what I was searching for. It's a bottleneck, and it won't work out. No matter what you do, you only have a limited space. You can expand on it. What we need to do is focus on opening up private vehicle crossings on the new port of entry. That's a specific item we can ask them to pursue. That's what I like to have. 3 or 4 different solutions to this problem that we specifically asked for.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that segue. When we talk about
I was afraid of that. I was afraid of that. A segue.
When we talk about those improvements, I did ask that question because, as you saw here, one of the things that was immediate was the economic impact. So if we wanted to take that, even one of my initial thoughts was, let's not wait till March. If I can get a set of talking points that need to be addressed immediately to get the lanes open, to have that recognition that while we understand that security is of the utmost importance, those 2 lanes need to be open because San Luis isn't one of the target destinations for any caravans. So that's why I put these initially together, because it was the economic impact that we were concerned with. But you're right. So some of the things that Mr. Schwam talked about was, if they want to open up the second port of entry, what does that mean for the improvements there? How many lanes would they need to do that? What would be the staffing requirements to get that accomplished? What type of infrastructure needs to come out of the port to be able to disperse traffic so you don't have a bottleneck even getting out of the port? And then what type of infrastructure improvements are necessary to queue, as you said, if you can have 10 lanes, but you only have 2 coming in and people are trying to disperse. So I'll add those in
Right.
there and update
Let me,
that
let
information.
me give you another example of what happens and what I believe happens at the border when the attitude is to slow things down. Back 2 years ago, the sentry lanes were to your right as you come in. There was two booths, two inspection booths. They have sealed those off and actually welded shut that access point. That was to me an opportunity to speed up flow, right? I mean, if you had enough officers, you could have opened those two and speed up the flow, right? You don't have to use it for Sentry anymore because Sentry's got a dedicated couple of tools now. But instead of making those operational, because we now move the commercial side all the way down to the east, they sealed them off, they welded them shut, and put concertina wire in there. Now, I understand the refugee situation, the people who come in and claim refugee status. You read in the paper that there was 342 or 300 something, 300 people that came through a hole in the wall. But you know, the difference between illegal immigration in the past and illegal immigration now is that these people are turning themselves in. They're not coming over and creating more work. They're creating more work for the Border Patrol, but they're all in a bunch. So, you know, it's a different type of situation. And the point that I'm trying to make is, look, that's an issue that I don't really want to get into that. What I want to get into is how can we improve the facility and the process for people who legally want to come to this country that are facing unduly long lines and that are facing a facility that was supposed to be improved by $6.2 million for pedestrians and opening up 3 or 4 additional lanes with a Sentry dedicated lane, and it's not working. What needs to happen? To me, what needs to happen is they need to acknowledge that their main purpose isn't to speed up traffic. The main purpose is to slow traffic to a point that they can actually do what they are focused on doing, which is stopping illegal immigration, looking for drugs. I get it. I do get it. It's just that it's having a very negative impact on that community, and it's impacting people who legally want to come to this country, who have something to do and something to contribute to the economy of Yuma County and of its residents. That's it. I mean, this is getting long-winded now, and I'm the one doing it, so I'm trying to speed up the process. Okay, so thank you.
Okay. So I'll amend those to include those points. I just wanted to show you the transition of how things are moving, because you're right. Ultimately, there have to be some longer-term solutions as well as some short-term ones.
That's right. Okay.
And just to add, if I know border security will come up a lot. I took about 5 or 6 years ago, or probably even longer, the custom
Citizenship Academy.
Citizenship Academy. I was the first one in that group, and it was the only one that they did by themselves. And one of the things that they told us, because I asked this question when I was the mayor in Somerton, about the long lines, and the port director at that time told us since 2011 or since 9/11. They are focused on just border security.
Not border process.
Not border, yeah, since 9/11. So border security didn't start just a while back, or
a long time ago.
It happened a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right, so
and we have continued with that. And again, we made the points. I mean, border security, we understand. What we like to see is some sort of balance between border security and trade. And that just doesn't seem to be happening. And I guess we're frustrated. We're going to Washington and continually asking for infrastructure improvements, for more staffing, to have it come out nil. You know, okay, look, we're going back to this.
No,
okay.
thank you. Appreciate those comments.
Better step out. You got something else?
I'll step on it then.
Okay, no, step back.
What I'll do then is, if I'll draw your attention next to the elections bill summary. It's probably one of the thicker handouts that you have.
Oh, yeah.
I initially started with only including elections bills that had gone to committee, but then so many of them pop up and so many of them contradict other ones that I started including the various bills, even if they haven't gone to committee. But Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to bring to your attention is the format of this report. So as part of the Arizona State Legislature website, this is how I can present to the Board of Supervisors the bill inquiries. So if I could draw your attention, what I've done here, so if you look, you'll see the first one is bill history for House Bill 2023. So on the summary, I provided just a little snippet there to give you the layperson's terms of what this bill really means, because oftentimes when you access the bill and you look at the description, it might just say appeal something and reverse something else. It doesn't really give you what the bill is attempting to accomplish. So I provided that brief summary there on all of the bills as we go down the line. You'll also see that it lists for you the sponsors. The P is for prime and the C is for the co-sponsors. It talks about the affected section of statute. It even, for the bills that have gone to a committee and have been assigned, it'll even give you the dates where that was introduced in the committee and any votes that have been taken so far. So, Mr. Chair, this is the format I'd like to keep presenting to the board for these updates. But if you have any recommendations, if you'd like to see something different, please let me know.
You know, it's going to be a lot of work. And, you know, because you've basically probably given us every bill that they're talking about and considering. Whether the bills have any chance at all of getting to a vote, it's somewhat irrelevant. But some of the, I guess some of the summaries are pretty short and concise. And, you know, we may, and I guess that's the thing, right? You may want to ask, supervisors may want to ask you to expand on a specific one. But what you're letting us know is this is what's moving, this is what's, you know, on the radar, and, you know, giving us an opportunity to comment either individually or as a board. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, because, you know, I would guess at this point, last Friday there was at least 375 bills dropped.
And that's
so
right.
I tried to pick out the ones that either seemed the most pertinent to either, you know, county business or to, you know, specific portions of legislation that overall impact us, because you're right, going through and trying to summarize all 375 would, it would be impossible. But what I wanted to do is frame the general discussion for each of these for you. So in terms of elections, I think there is a way to look at it. It's not something down the middle. There are both sides of the pendulum have swung on both. As you'll see here, you know, when you talk about the highlights of this, of the election bills focus a lot on, one of them repeals the ballot harvesting provisions entirely. So that would get rid of the restriction on ballot harvesting. Where you swing over to the other side of the pendulum, which says any person coming into a vote center that looks to drop off an early ballot has to provide ID and have to sign an affidavit. So, you know, you can really see how far that's going. Some of the other bills in here reflect a desire to create an early voting that is similar to election day voting. So in the early voting process, you can actually show up to the polls and you don't have to provide the ID requirements aren't the same as if you show up to vote on election day. So there's an attempt there to have early voting mirror the same as election day voting. So I wanted to give you those highlights because as you look through there too, you'll see some voter registration bills and so on. So to keep things moving along, those are the reasons why I provide the summary, because you really have to cut down to it just to say this bill wants to, you know, make voter registration polls be purged on a quicker manner in relation to how often people vote, those kind of things. So I wanted to give you those updates. And at this point, since it's so early in the process, I haven't included what seems to be the recommendations on this, either coming out of CSA or NACO. Some of these you will be able to see, but some of them, it is, you know, they'll have their first hearings and their first testimony today, in fact, on some of the elections bills. So will be my other attempt, is to gather and report back to the board what it seems like this is moving forward. Does it seem as though it will be moving forward and, you know, get a final vote out of committee, those kind of things.
All right. You know, the local legislature is going to go on for, you know, 3 or 4 months, but we've got an upcoming trip to Washington in about a month. So we need to sort of, you know, shift a little and focus more on this trip and the appointments and those type of things. I need you to get more involved in that. I think every one of us for you to get more involved in the process of getting us ready for that trip and, you know, getting the appointments done and all those other things so that we are prepared individually and as a group to, you know, to state our case up there. Okay?
I just want to make a comment. I mean, it's just, you know, and this is not the first time I hear it, but why? I think it's just, my question would be, why all of a sudden this year we got like 1,000 bills just on elections?
Oh, because
because of
Republicans lost last year.
one, or either they don't know how to lose,
Oh, come on.
No, it's seriously, I mean, I think we need to start being upfront. I mean, this is ridiculous when we have the state legislator concentrating on things like this.
It's shocking.
That it's shocking. I mean, you didn't hear from them before, and all of a sudden, you know,
Yeah.
it's just amazing.
That's
It's
one of the
just,
reasons
I
why you
mean,
don't want to bring all this
that-
stuff up here so
honestly,
soon. I mean, really.
it is
Look,
ridiculous.
again, I don't think we can get involved in the pros and cons of the legislation that's going on, because most of the stuff is not going to get to a point where it's going to, happen.
There's only a few.
Yeah, there's only
There's
So,
only a few that are sponsors
that's
of all
right,
these
yeah.
bills.
And
Yeah.
so, I'm sure that as the process goes forward, we're going to be a lot busier with these things 2 or 3 months from now, when the bills are starting to come out of committees and the votes are being taken. And what we probably be most interested in is how can Supervisor Pancrazy, how can Supervisor McLeod get involved at the end of these bills to either testify or to either, contact with you some of the sponsors of these bills that are going to have an impact, either the recorder's office, the assessor's office, or any county office. And that's probably more, this is pretty premature. I mean, a lot of the stuff is just noise. It happens every year. I'm sure
It
that you're
does.
aware of that.
We've
It
just-
happens every year. The only surprising thing is where they're focused this year and why they're focused there. But, that discussion is going to be pretty partisan, and we don't really get into a lot of partisan stuff here.
Right, and Mr. Chair, what it is, the summary reports are meant just to get some things on your radar, because when you look at it, one of the bills that will be coming out of committee is that SB 1001, which is the repeal of the vehicle license tax. That's already started. It's been discussed at length.
The water bill, those type of things are going to happen pretty fast, I think.
Well,
What
Mr.
the
Chair,
drug condition.
and there are some that if you'll focus on the ones that belong to the chair of the committee that they're going to be heard in, those bills are going to go to committee.
Yeah.
If the chair is sponsoring them, they go to committee.
Those need a little more
So,
attention, that's probably what she's saying.
Yeah, those are the ones that normally,
Are going to make it through the grinder first.
yeah, they'll make it through the grinder first. You got
Thank
it.
you, appreciate that.
Mhm.
All right.
No, but it's just to give you a summary, to give you a sense of what's out there. So if you like the format, I'll continue with the format and keep that.
Yeah, well, Supervisor Pancrazy was given us that format all the way through last year and the year before. I get the yellow sheet, so, it's just an additional. But like I said, so we don't get bogged down on the details of a lot of stuff that may or may not happen. We probably need to focus in a few bills, and, those ones that have more of a chance of getting through, that impact the county, instead of that shotgun approach that we're doing right now. It's fine. I mean, and you should leave it at giving us that and saying, if you have any questions on this, or you need more information on this, please let you know. That way you can be more effective, because if you bring these bills as issues that we like to get into, we're gonna start getting a little bit into it. And, I really don't think that's the purpose. The purpose is to monitor this, okay?
Thank you.
Right. Okay, thank you. Last but not least, the report on events attended, okay?
I think you took my paper that I had it on.
Really?
Yeah.
I did that on purpose, but I don't know.
I just put it on the back of one of
I was gonna say, there's a reason behind it.
There it is. I found it. Thank you.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah, really, huh? Do you want to start with me,
Yes,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
Okay.
Why not?
I attended the opening session of the state legislature and got to go down on the floor and visit with a lot of folks that I haven't seen in a while. So that was very enjoyable. I also did the march and the service for MLK Day, Martin Luther King, celebrating unity. And believe it or not,
That's it.
that's it.
Good. Supervisor Simmons.
Dang. Jeez.
Oh,
Attended the Foothills Optimist Club meeting. Made a quick appearance in at the new park board when they had their first meeting. Just more or less to thank the board for their time and volunteering to get this thing rolling. Attended the legislative meet and greet up in Phoenix at the CSA. Also the Yuma County Agri-Water Coalition dinner and had a community meeting in the foothills, which I had a good response. There's probably about 80 or 90 people that showed up for that with some issues that I've got to work on. And that's it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, did you go on the ag tour?
No, I was going to, but I didn't make the
I was going to
tour.
mention that, but yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I
Okay.
wanted to, but they were,
Packed.
yeah.
Yeah,
They had a very good legislative response this year that came in for it.
yes, good.
Okay. Supervisor McLeod. Oh boy, did I make
Your
that
turn.
mistake. Supervisor McLeod. Supervisor Porches. Sorry.
I attended the CSA reception and the meeting, I stayed for the meeting, so I also attended the MLK March on Monday.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks ago, I attended the Border County Coalition meeting. And it was something that we talked there, or the other counties talked about too, was the long lines. How is affecting the border communities, the economy? Because people that come and spend, just that live across the border, that want to come and spend, haven't done it the same way because of the long lines and all the things that they're seeing. So it is affecting the whole state, not just our county.
Yeah, it is.
It is. It's so that's
Okay. You got it? Okay. I have, let's see, I didn't go in the agricultural tour, but I hosted the breakfast, at the comité. So I got the chance to talk to them, and both Lisa and Charlene are very instrumental in doing that, and Tim.
And Tim.
Dunn, were very instrumental in putting it together. I think it's a great opportunity for people in the legislature to actually see and touch and feel, and actually experience what you tell them, and for us, a border community, an agricultural community, the fact that they went down to the border and see the farm workers cross, and the fact that they went to the fields and see the operations, gives them a much better perspective on the impact that their actions have on our area. So I feel that's a great program. We also had a meeting. There's a group in San Luis called the Vision Group. It's made up of people in the community that have a lot to say and do economically in the community. The mayor attended. The mayor of San Luis attended, and if you heard me complaining about the long lines, you should have heard him. And how disappointed he is about all the efforts that they put out to improve infrastructure and to do all these things, and to have it be cut up in this notion that there's an emergency at the border and that you need the arm. He feels that is giving San Luis a bad reputation, and I agree with him. I think a lot of this stuff is really not helping. It's not helping the relationship between the two cities, certainly not helping the neighborhood relationships and the trade and commerce happening at the border. So he made that point clear to me.
It's impacting all the communities.
Yes,
if you watch the news, you'll see
That's right.
all of the border communities.
And I went to the CSA reception with the legislators, and I went to the Senate opening day. Senator Rotondo invited us to be there. A couple of members of the community of San Luis, so we were there. It's really encouraging to see how the legislators from Yuma County continually prove how good they are, because they end up always in leadership. They always end up being influential, even in the minority party. They always end up being, trailblazers, and they always end up being in the front of most of these, arguments and fights. So congratulations to both Charlene and to Senator Rotondo on their efforts to
Be in leadership.
And one last thing, Susan, and this is when we were having a meeting earlier, and somebody mentioned the building. Somebody mentioned the building and the design. It was on the.
It was on the county
look,
line.
before it gets too far down the road, let us have a look at it. Before it goes to the full committee. Either individually or as a group, let us have a report on how it's going.
The first design review committee actually is made up of Senator Pancrazzi, Supervisor Pancrazzi, and Supervisor McLeod. They're on
Which
the
is what
initial
worries me,
design,
Supervisor McLeod.
concept review committee. So they'll be the first ones to see it, and we can bring it to you.
All right. I haven't seen the final product. I've heard a little bit. I know. But I want to tell you what my concern is right now. My concern right now about that, and I want to make sure that you get this. I mean, we're not discussing.
You are.
Yeah, we can talk after the meeting.
Just the two of you.
Unless you want to talk about establishing a meeting in the future that these are the points you want
All right.
to discuss.
Okay, we're not gonna discuss this. We're moving on. All right. I have nothing else. I have met plenty, but the attorney's here, so we'll talk about it later. Go ahead.
This is where he gets the final word.
So,
The attorney's here, so I can talk about it.
That's
But,
right. So last week I attended my county manager's administrators meeting, and then also the legislative reception, which had a very good turnout. That was really gratifying, and I was able to meet Geraldine Peaton,
Pate.
our newest representative, and she was going to go on the ag tour, so that's good too.
He was there.
Yeah,
I saw a picture of her, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and then of course the CSA actual meeting, and then the Legislative Policy Committee will start up very, very soon to begin representing the entire board on a weekly basis, looking at those bills as they come through and making those kinds of actions. So Paul will be in on those phone calls every week, so he'll be up to speed on what's going on and what the CSA position is on those bills coming forward. Tomorrow, there is a YCEBT meeting. I will miss it because I'll be out of town, but just to preview for you all, FYI, it looks like we'll be looking at initially a recommendation from Siegel for a 5.1% increase on our health premiums. But that's all subject to looking at the entire fund balance and any plan modifications, that kind of thing. So at least it's single digits. That's very good. We've been very fortunate compared to every other health plan in keeping those rates really low. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. But the final number could be smaller than that, depending on any other adjustments or decisions of recommendations from the YCEBT board, which Chairman Reyes serves on as well. So that will be coming up tomorrow. And then we will bring that to you at the February retreat to give you more opportunity to look at those rates and what it is that the board would like to do.
All right. That's it? All right.
Before, Susan, you were there at that Medium County meeting that we had up at the state the other day. But one of the things that I would like more information, and maybe that the board can be involved, would be the reach out initiative. If something we can probably look into that.
Yes, I got some brochures, so I will be sending you some information about that, as well as talking with all the participants, legal defender, county public defender, county attorney, and the sheriff's office, jail district.
Right. One more direction. With this shutdown, almost impossible to predict. You know, I think that we need to let those departments that are going to be impacted in March to prepare for contingency plan. You know, it doesn't, I don't know. I mean, I used to think this wasn't going to last a long time. So please, it's a direction thing. It's not, you know, start preparing them for a contingency plan and what we're going to do. No discussion, just direction.
Yes, I've already been in conversation with the finance director as well as the health director and the housing director.
Okay, gotcha. Anything else, people? No? I hereby declare this meeting over.